Three, two, one. We're finally on. I apologize for the perspective, and right now, for whatever reason, the layout is a bit off, but we'll just talk about what I'm observing now. Since our last live stream together, Brian, oh, wait, echo, 1 second. Okay, audio check. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear Brian?
What's up, guys? How's everybody?
Just making sure audio's good.
Oh, there's a comment. Okay.
Let's say hello to everyone out there. Hey, Michael Hale, James, and Big C-Dub, David Weiland, another regular, Kevin the Destroyer, 555, saying hi to everybody out there. Mozart's Ghost, the regulars are here. And Jesse Viviano, yes, Jesse, we have your question, and I'll address that first and foremost. So today is about the LG G3, and before we jump into it, Brian, introduce yourself and the show. Let's get excited.
All right, guys. What's up, guys? I'm Brian from Brian's Tech Therapy. Today's video is actually on the LG G3, possibly being the best TV of the year. Why this is an interesting conversation is last year, FOMO, the LG G2 was one of the first TVs released. It was quickly usurped by the S95B, then the A95K, and then by the end of the year, it became one of the best or highest recommended TVs last year. So I guess we were kind of thinking, is the G3 now going to come out on top at the very end of the year after the A95L finally released?
Yep. And also, one thing that I guess I should mention, when we first saw the A95L, and I know the labeling is off, so I'm going to take it off right now. So if you guys are just joining us, the A95L is in the middle, S95C is on the left, and G3 is on the right. And when you guys, we all started, oh my gosh, see, I cannot, let me turn this off. The color is so off, it's like, okay, much more natural. Okay, so the last time we had this comparison, the S95C, the G3, all that good stuff, right? What we saw was that the A95L was okay, but it wasn't impressive, if you guys remember, right? And people were like, oh no, the A95L, this and that. And part of that is also, it has had no firmware updates since, we started, right? So a lot of people will say, well, this firmware update that just came, does it change the TV? And I have to say it does change the TV significantly, actually. A lot of the HDR issues that I noticed, specifically Dolby Vision was not as bright as the G3 Dolby Vision. That's been fixed, and this is on Netflix, and we're going to go some of that scenes real quick. And also, sports, well, not sports, the G3, okay, so the title today is G3 Takes the Lead. And the G3 is very consistent, right? Even in its most recent firmware update, in vivid mode. So if all three TVs are put in their brightest mode, and the content justifies that brightness, so we're talking sports, HDR, the G3 continues to be slightly brighter than the other two TVs. So let's get that out of the way. And Brian, when we're at the shootout, we're going to have a fun mode HDR impact. What do you think this, how will this reflect in the judge's preference, you think? Because the room will be bright. There will be a category where the room is bright, and we're going to have to set a TV in a way that's able to fight the ambient light without being too or too inaccurate, right? Obviously, you want it to be bright, but if it's bright and blue, the judges will knock points against that. And today, we're going to see how natural it looks when all three TVs are set to their brightest mode, because for watching anything in a super bright room, you'll be surprised how many people put their TVs in dynamic or vivid or standard.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I mean, I think we talked about this many times with the shootout, having TVs calibrated, all processing disabled, and the majority of people, while they want that accuracy for the shootout, it's not something that the average person may like, or have a TV that's more saturated, like say the S95C, or like last year's G2, that probably would have done a little bit better with a more vibrant preset. So our plan this year is at some point to be able to put them in another preset that's perhaps uncalibrated or not as accurate, and see how they perform with things like HDR impact, which all three of these TVs are going to succeed at being brighter than OLEDs last year of any kind. So it'll be very interesting to see how they perform, especially MLA and QD OLED. But the main conversation for a lot of us has been the A95L being the longest or the last TV to release. Was it worth the hype? Was the hype too high? Was it miles better than anything else? And I think you've realized this week that that wasn't the case.
Yep. And this is a part of the shootout that's never been seen before, which is preference and subjectivity, right? And when we do sports before, it was like an old SDR scene from way back when, and it was mostly motion that people looked at. They were not looking at brightness, and the room was actually, even though the room was brighter, the SDR image was actually not bright enough because all the TVs were put in their most accurate mode. And so I'm using this scene. This is, and let me expand it a little bit larger here. So, and I apologize, for whatever reason, everything's been working, and then suddenly today I have this issue with the the video mixer. But you do see Brian and myself. So in this scene, I'm going to turn down the exposure, and you'll see that in vivid mode, HDR, HDMI, on the Chromecast, what you're going to get is that the G3 and the S95C is also dynamic mode with active on, and the Sony is in vivid mode, right? The goal is for you guys to see the differences. And to me, the G3, the colors are very similar actually, right? But it's easier to see all the details on the G3, whether it's the words, whether it's the brightness. The G3 kind of has that extra pop. And because most scores are in white, WOLED strength is white. I mean, look at how that white pops, right? And so just so you guys can see real quick, what we have as settings is dynamic mode on the Samsung. And by the way, all three are very bright. It's just the G3 is that much brighter. Contrast enhancers on high. Oh, they put it active.
What's the dynamic tone mapping on the G3 from? Was it enabled?
Yes, on the G3, dynamic tone mapping is enabled as well. But I also put it in a setting that is easiest to see contrast, words, jersey numbers, and all that stuff. And then you guys, let me put up the Sony real quick. Yep. And so these are the settings that I've been playing around with the last few days to see what would be preferred. And the HDR tone mapping is gradation preferred. That actually helps you read all the details a little bit better. But you guys can play this when you get home. But I feel this is the best as far as sports watching and live colors on high. I mean, this doesn't change the brightness. Some of you might not want it so red. I'll take it to low, actually. Okay. The G3 is the easiest to read for me. So if you go, I mean, there's this one scene where there's a whole bunch of players out there, and on the G3 you're able to read the jerseys the easiest compared to all the other TVs. And to me, that actually makes a big difference when you're watching sports, because these are fast action and you don't want to be pausing, or if it's live TV and you're unable to pause, right? Then you're like, wait, I didn't see that.
Now, do you feel processing the G3 is also kind of caught up?
Oh yeah, the processing is great. And the S95C processing is fine. Here we go. So these are three TVs, right? The Sony, of course, has the most natural green, as you can see. And the G3 is the most fluorescent. But also, though, I can see the white lines across a little bit easier. The jerseys, everything is slightly easier to read. Even though it's in vivid mode, the Sony wants to make it as accurate and vivid as possible. Nothing wrong with that. For those of you who like that, that's fine. And the S95C, I think, is in between the three TVs. But Brian, when you see this, which TV would you choose for sports watching?
Well, it's tough because the A95L probably looks the most accurate, but it looks like it's dim in comparison. So is that it trying to just be accurate by making it almost like a filmmaker mode, even though it's in a vivid preset?
No. So this is HDR Sports. In SDR Sports, the brightness is about the same, except it's SDR, right? You get a bit less gradient. So this is going through the Chromecast. If I convert everything kind of, okay, so actually, you know what? A lot of people are asking, well, what does it look like YouTube TV in SDR? So I'll do that for the Samsung, actually. Let me
Well,
see.
the A95L just looks very dim. But out of those three in that image, I probably like the QN95C, or I'm sorry, the S95C the best because it's got the saturation. It's brighter, but where the G3 looks more like a Samsung.
Yeah, doesn't it? And again,
Yeah.
it's in vivid mode, so you know, accuracy is not
Yeah, of
important,
course.
but a lot of other things are more important, right? So this is the Samsung native app. It is also an SDR, right? The native app is SDR. Let me make sure. What's this? 2021. So you guys have a chance to see, because a lot of people, when they say, you know, this is what the TVs look like or whatnot, 19, there we go.
Now, in the comments, what have you guys been thinking of the A95L in foremost comparisons in the week of covering it? Are you disappointed? Are you excited? Are you waiting for your own judgments to see it for yourself? What do you guys think in the comments? Let us know. Because it is the last major TV of the year, the very end of the year. Let's see, John saying not too happy with the A95L. Mustafa disappointed, wasn't worth the wait. Ward Wolfman, I have pre-ordered the A95L. A95L is beautiful. Well, I think, guys, you know, no doubt the A95L is going to be excellent. The question is always going to be how much better is it than the excellent A95K?
And it's
So
also
I
use
would,
case, right?
yes, yeah, it's very specific. Sony's got a very specific use case, but I think we were all expecting something massive, which, you know, Adam is saying the A95L is a price killer compared to the other two. Crypto is saying the G3 is where it's at.
Yeah, I'm having
We
a
knew that
problem
was
getting things synced up. But anyway,
okay.
the image quality on the S95C, the gradient isn't there, but partly because it's SDR. I think HDR gives you the most dynamic range, but a lot of people don't want to use a streamer, right? So when we're doing the shootout in sports mode, what we're going to try to do is also, we're going to make sure to turn on the lights and then put it in a mode that maximizes resolution, motion resolution, as well as enhance the ease of reading the details, because in sports you want to see the ball moving, right? That's the motion resolution. You also want to see the jerseys and the sports ticker and all of that. And I found the G3 literally designed their vivid mode to do that the best, with the S95C just behind that, and the Sony is good, but you can't call it the best. But if you look here on the comparisons and everything, it looks very close, but that's in sports mode, whether it's vivid or SDR. The question is, what about something like Netflix and Dolby Vision? And this is where Sony's firmware, I think we can say that the Sony A95L is now the brightest OLED TV, peak specular highlights. Are you surprised when I say that, Brian?
I am quite a bit, actually. I mean, I was hoping that the A95L would be, what we heard, 200% brighter. We heard all this. So I had thought that maybe the S95C would end up with the same kind of dropping of peak brightness that we had last year with the S95B. So I am pleasantly surprised that it's the brightest.
Yeah, I am too. And this is after the firmware update, by the way. And let me make sure I change all the the modes, right? I think they're still in vivid mode. So you guys, so this is in the most accurate mode. Obviously, if you guys want to amp up the various different modes, you can, and we'll do that. We'll also give it its brightest mode, but in its most accurate mode, right? This is the surprise. Sony is normally very conservative in its most accurate mode. And now remember, the Sony is not calibrated. However, the Sony appears to be so accurate to me that I don't think calibration is going to lower it that much, because I noticed the difference is about 1 to 2 stops, which is
And it is the only
noticeable.
master series. It's the only master series this year which are known to be somewhat calibrated at the factory.
Yes, and they will be calibrated when we're at the shootout for sure. It's just mine isn't. But then a lot of you will then wonder, should I get it calibrated? If it's out of the box and it's that good, don't touch it, because I think the skin tones are actually pretty fine.
Well,
Let's
and
make
master series
sure.
are known to have that, again, manufacturers supposedly, they're binned higher and they have the calibration done at the factory. So that was their whole selling point of the master series, other than build quality and the sound. So we have 343 in the chat, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Please hit like, show FOMO some love. Thank you guys for joining us. We have the S95C on the far left, the A95L in the middle, and the LG G3 on the right.
And they're all now in their most accurate HDR mode. We're going to watch this in HDR, not Dolby Vision, because we're comparing it to the S95C. And as you've seen in my earlier comparisons yesterday, there is no difference between Dolby Vision and HDR10, as far as I'm concerned, especially in these scenes in The Witcher. Now, in other content, there might be. But in The Witcher, it appears that all 3 TVs have, with all the firmware updates and everything, they look identical. And The Witcher on the S95C looks so similar that it's pointless to choose a TV if you're watching Netflix, unless there is a specific movie on Netflix that you can say, oh, the colors are so different. Let me know, but I'm just not seeing it. All right, so gradation preferred on the Sony. All the other enhancements are off. Peak luminance is on high. All right, so let's see in this scene what happens now. And you'll be pleasantly surprised, I think. Or Sony A95L fans will be pleasantly surprised, because the A95K was not this bright. And they actually fixed, for me, the most important part is the gradient detail on the Sony is right there with the other 2 TVs, except the Sony is a touch brighter.
The shadow detail is very good.
Yeah, and it's hard to notice, but the Sony is a touch brighter. So let me see if I can adjust my...
Yeah, no, it's actually pretty noticeable.
Yeah, it is. Let's see, 1, 2, it's like 2.5 stops brighter than the other 2. The G3 is next. Yeah, the G3 and the S95C have the same brightness and that most brightest part of the scene. And the Sony is about 2 stops brighter than the other 2 TVs. So it's not obvious, right? And the details are all there. So if I turn down the exposure a bit, you guys can see all TVs render. I mean, tone mapping, I think, is pretty much done for these type of scenes. And we're talking Netflix, on Chromecast, and so forth. And so I have to say bravo, Sony, because I remember when we reviewed this in our very first stream, this scene, the Sony, even in gradation preferred, it clipped the details in the clouds. It couldn't do it. After the firmware update, it fixed it. And this is because I was testing different firmware the other day. Remember that? And bravo, Sony. But here's the best part. In Dolby Vision, all that specular detail was there, but it was not as bright as the G3 Dolby Vision. Well, that was fixed too. In Dolby Vision, in all of the Dolby Vision formats, bright, dark, accurate, vivid, it matched the G3 exactly. So Sony's firm, I mean, I don't know. Sony's like, oh my gosh, firmware's already reviewing this TV. Get that firmware out now, right?
Yeah, that always happens. Or they won't let, was it Samsung wouldn't let you update it? It's like, uh-oh. So FOMO, if the A95K was here right now, can you describe what you think it would look like if the A95K was in the place of the A95L?
Okay, 1 second here. So, oh, what is that? Let me add myself real quick. I am huge. What the heck? I apologize, everyone. It's like I'm just going, though, bro. I'm struggling with adding everything here. Okay, so let me turn this the next thing real quick. The A95K, the peak specular highlights did not match the brightness of the S95C. And we expected that, right? Because this is why you have the 2nd gen panel. It allowed it to get just a little bit brighter. And you're seeing it in consistently now. So Sony, I think this is the first time Sony did not aggressively pull back tone mapping. They're able to do both. And this is what we've been waiting for. They did both tone mapping for detail in gradation preferred and let it run as it should accurately, but it's actually even brighter than the G3 in the G3's strength, which is whites. I'm like, what? Right? And it's brighter than the S95C in that scene. And that's why I like that scene that we just saw, because that's both, that's the WOLED strength is the white, and the Sony did it. And so this will be very interesting to see. Now, obviously, once it's calibrated at the shootout, we can get final numbers. But with the firmware update, I love that HDR10 was always brighter, by the way. It's just the specular highlights lacked detail. Now the detail's there without compromising that brightness. So the G3 may win in things like vivid mode, sports, which is a category this year. However, HDR impact, I want to see if Sony could match the MiniLED TVs, the Q95C, the, what's the other one? The XLED, the U8K, right? So, yeah. Brian, is this the Sony A95L now for you? Because I know you want that impact. Is this impactful enough for you?
I mean, I wasn't expecting, we expected a big leap. To me, that shot is a pretty big leap. That's why I was curious to what you think the A95K would look like in that same shot. Because a lot of us, or a lot of people in the community tab right now, if they're not looking at 77, they're probably going to lean back for the A95K, which has been a big talk for us. I like what I see from it. It's hard not to be a little let down simply because it is the last TV of the year. But then again, us as enthusiasts know how to temper our expectations. But I do love that particular shot. The sports shot, I did not like at all, as it was very dim. And right there, from what you're about to show me, it looks pretty vibrant in the middle, where the G3 now looks like it's the dimmest.
And so let's be fair to all three TVs. When I say the Sony is brighter, it is so subtle that I barely notice it because it's side by side. But if it wasn't for the camera where I'm looking at the exposure meter, I couldn't say definitively how much brighter it is. But the fact that it is that stop or two brighter tells me that Sony specifically worked on getting its TV brighter. Now, this is a far cry from 200% brighter. Or 100% brighter, right? Twice as bright. But definitely, though, I think and Netflix, right? I'm just going to use Netflix because it's a very popular platform. It's taking the lead. I mean, this is pretty good. Whereas the G3, very, very good for sports. And so you can't, so let me ask you that. You can't have both, right? If you want the brightest sports, the G3 is similarly about 2 stops brighter than the Sony, maybe even 3 stops for sports. But for HDR content, the Sony is a touch brighter. Now, is it worth that premium over the A95K?
I mean, I think,
I'd say, $1,000? Brian, what do you think?
yeah. Well, I mean, that we said that was the biggest disadvantage for releasing so late in the year, was you were going to come out at a higher price than the others while the other prices were dropping. The A95K is still in stock. I would say it almost, now would you, let me turn the question to you, FOMO. Are you seeing like an S95, S90 incremental upgrade here? Or would you say it feels like that, or even more so? Where
You
the
mean the
S90 is almost like the S, yeah, like we're,
S95C upgrade over the S94?
nope, the S. So remember we were talking about how the S95, S90C has become like your favorite TV
Oh, the
because it's
S90C,
so
yeah.
close to the S95. Do you feel like the
Yeah.
A95K and the A95L share that same difference, or is it a bit more on the A95L?
The A95L, okay, so the S90C at the 77-inch often matches the 95C more often than not. And in occasional scenes, it's a half stop less bright, which is very, like, if it wasn't side by side, I had my camera out and I checked the exposures, right? I wouldn't have seen that. And that's why I like the S90C so much, because you're not going to notice that difference. But the S95C is Samsung's brightest available TV. And in scenes like this, the Sony, that slight brightness pops a little bit in terms of the contrast and everything. Like, on her leg, on the bottom right hand, or the bottom left, I guess her right leg, our left,
Mhm.
there is better contrast on the Sony than the Samsung, right? So it pops even more in this scene specifically. And it's these little things where I'm like, okay, I'm getting that extra brightness, a little bit better contrast, but then again, the Samsung and the G3 are calibrated. So how much of this is out of the box, which tells me what? Do not calibrate this TV. It looks phenomenal out of the box. Calibrating it will make it better, in my opinion. Now, I'm going to show you a scene where the calibration you might want, because it looks a little bit different in Dolby Vision. I've noticed that Dolby Vision pushes red a bit. In HDR10, this is HDR10 on all three TVs, the colors, if they weren't side by side, you would say indistinguishable. But in Dolby Vision, the G3 versus the S95C, the G3 versus the A95L, the A95L clearly pushes that red magenta in Dolby Vision, unlike HDR10. So that's another irony, Brian. If you love Dolby Vision, the A95L, you might need to get it calibrated in Dolby Vision to get that red down just a touch. What do you think about that?
Now, did you notice that same difference in the other panel, FOMO, when you were doing Dolby Vision? Did you see that same thing, or was it panel by panel, you
Exactly
think?
the same. I compared the Dolby
Okay.
Vision. Yeah, so this appears to be a Sony color science thing. I don't think it's a panel variance at
Gotcha.
all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
I
guess
think
it would be mattering how sensitive you are to it. And now Dolby Vision has become very commonplace. But I do find the conversation will always go back to the top price of the A95L right now versus the much cheaper S95C and G3. That's always going to end up coming in. Now, we knew that was going to be a problem coming in this late.
yeah, and of course don't use YouTube to compare color. Compare the luminances, because luminance, contrast, sure, but don't use color, because the WOLED color on YouTube TV is going to be completely different. Now I'm going to expose it a bit so we can see some of this black detail. And
A lot more detail on the G3. And it was more particles showing on the S95C.
so here you
And
see the Sony maybe is a little too bright,
yep,
because you see that black part of her chest, to be
yep,
polite, right?
yep.
On the S95C and on the G3, it's a slightly deeper black. And so you see the Sony is a little bit brighter, right? But because I'm hyperexposing, you're seeing what Sony is doing this year, which is we're going to make it a little bit brighter because you're going to notice this. Now, maybe then when it's calibrated, will that go down? That's
Yeah.
another question. But that's just
I
something, and
FOMO,
this, uh-huh.
do you feel that they're adding that to give you that impact because of the weight? They basically want to say, hey, look, we're going to show you that brightness because
Yes, absolutely,
it's,
absolutely. And this is in gradation preferred, right? In brightness preferred, it'll only be worse. So it's in gradation
yep,
preferred. And now taking my exposure down just a little bit, they all look identical. But because I hyperexposed it, I just wanted you to see
yeah.
finally, if you do it really fine, yes, the Sony is slightly lifted right there. But if you watched it, just eyeballed it, you could not tell that it is. If it wasn't for my camera, like if I take down exposure and it's still overexposed, you can't really tell that. Let me see, yeah. Here we go.
Guys, we have the S95C on the far left, the Sony A95L in the middle, and the LG G3 is on the right.
Yeah, this is how close they are. This is still overexposed, and now the Sony looks great, but I can see that the Sony made it a little bit brighter. That's what it is, right?
But I guess your question goes back to, for that little bit of brightness that is again in a 3-second scene, is it worth the premium?
Mm-hmm.
And for
Is
those of
it?
you in the chat, for you gamers, this is where the other two will pull away. What are your thoughts about that in the chat, everyone?
Oh,
Two
one second.
HDMI inputs, better sound on the A95L by a lot. But when you get into value, is at this time of year more expensive, incrementally better picture quality, nowhere near the gaming features. The game bar is anemic at best in comparison to the G3 and the S95C, and it's more expensive. Where are you guys with that?
And again, I apologize that I keep on popping in and out like this, but for whatever reason, my broadcast decided not to cooperate today. Like, what is happening?
Your shirt is
So,
excellent, though. I would tell you, get them Fight Club shirts. I'm gonna rock those.
why, thank you. I thank you. Look, see, it's like,
The hat
the
on. Look at
heck?
that.
So I'm sorry, Jordan. I know you want me to label it. Normally I do, but today the labeling thing, the label thing is, my audio is working fine, but the label thing is not. So the A95L is in the middle, G3 is on the right, and the S95C is on the left. See, it can never be.
This is not a price shootout, Ahmad. You're right. It's not a price shootout, but that's something that you guys have to gauge. You guys have to gauge, is this going to be worth chasing? And home theater FOMO, we're always chasing very incremental update, speakers, FPS.
Right.
That's on you, but we have to still discuss it as coming out this late in the year. It is going to be something you guys have to be concerned with.
And well, let me ask this. How many of you want to see Samsung in this same scene against Dolby Vision, Sony, and G3?
That would be interesting.
That would be great, right? So here we are.
Yeah.
This is Samsung's native Netflix app. And let's convert the Sony to Dolby Vision. We'll see what happens.
Dennis Sr. said, I'm a grown adult. I don't buy TVs based on gaming. I got you. I hear that.
All right, so I'll do this on the side while if you can answer questions, my friend.
Sure.
Go for it.
Absolutely. All right, guys. What are your thoughts so far? What are your thoughts on the A95L? Lisa, how are you, my friend? Thanks for jumping in. Let's see. LG from Berserker, LG G3 77 inches versus the Sony S95L. That's quite a difference in price in the Netherlands. That's almost double. I would say no to that. FOMO, I would say probably if you're willing to go for $1,000 for the new TV, perhaps, but I wouldn't go more than that. And even then, that would be hard because the thing is, Master Series typically don't drop in price. They typically don't have to. So I don't expect this one to have much of a sale anytime soon. Let's see. Terry has the Z9K. Yeah, you're not worrying about anything. Oh, crypto color thick hit us gamers so hard. I felt that. I feel personally attacked. No, it's all good. I understand, but gaming has become a much more, a much larger percentage of the TV community has focused on gaming. So we've stepped away from monitors, and these TVs have gotten so good. Hi, Lisa. How are you? Yeah, but as we were talking, Lisa, last year we had the G2 was the first TV released. It was excellent, and then the S95B took the wind out of the sails, and then it was updated a few times, and then the A95K came out, and then at the end of the year, because the A95K was so expensive, the G2 then became the most recommended TV of the year due to price to performance. And then now we're here again wondering if the G3 will now become the most recommended as it's the most consistent and now not the cheapest, but it's a better deal than the brand new A95L. Jack in Black, I'm a grown adult and I game. I knew that was going to be, that's why I read it. Let's see. Fire Gone. For me, I'd prefer to go for the G3, but given that I have to buy a stand for it and calibration, yeah, I mean, that is something to consider, guys. Also, keep in mind that the A95L's sound is superior. It's not close. FOMO had a plan the other day. It has bass. It sounds fantastic. The Samsung sound is atrocious. The G3's sound is not good either. So keep that in mind that you perhaps will need, a sound bar or a sound system. Brian, will you try to show more movies or TV shows? I will probably not be doing that simply because I just can't risk it. FOMO's not afraid. He's just going to go freestyle.
I'm fearless, my friends.
He's fearless. I'm not trying to do that.
On the right is Dolby Vision, as you saw, and then we'll make sure to have the right settings for Dolby Vision so you guys can see, but I think this is a good place to start right here.
Okay.
And here we go. Hopefully it's close enough. I think I nailed it this time, actually. Okay,
Nice.
so.
The HDR looks great, man.
Oh, looks phenomenal.
HDR looks fun. A lot of
And
Samsung guys are
so
like, forget that Dolby
Cinema
Vision.
Dolby Vision is LG's most accurate Dolby Vision. And on the Sony, it will be Dolby Vision Dark. Oops. Yep, Dolby Vision Dark. And I did have it on Gradation Preferred in Dolby Vision. I find that to give me the best image quality, preserving the specular highlights. And on the Samsung, let's make sure it's not in active mode.
And guys, we have the LG G3 far right, Sony A95L in the middle, and the Samsung S95C far left.
Okay, so now as far as brightness, let's see here.
They both look great. They all three look great.
All three are exactly the same brightness in this scene. They have the same.
The detail looks the same too, FOMO.
Actually, the Dolby Vision is, I mean, you could argue that Dolby Vision is half a stop brighter, maybe. But it's so subtle it's not. But yeah, I mean, I have to say that. But the detail is very similar, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
We do have a super chat from Getty G-Man when you have a chance.
I think it looks, well, first of all, if you get a Samsung and doesn't have Dolby Vision, not a big deal.
Yeah, I think we all agreed last year with the S95B that we kind of concurred that it wasn't a big deal. You can still chase it if you really want it, especially Dolby Vision gaming, but I do feel it's not necessary with a Samsung.
Yeah.
All right, guys, we got 404 in the chat. Please like and subscribe to both FOMO and myself. That's Brian's Tech Therapy. Thank you guys for being here tonight.
And in the Dolby Vision version, the Sony didn't lighten up that left side of her chest. It's the same scene, not as much as right before you guys noticed, right? When I popped up the exposure, right? Clearly that breast disappeared, but now it's back. So Dolby Vision, I guess, on the Sony does a little bit something, but really it's not a big deal. I'm just having fun with this. But at the end of the day, this is not why you should be getting the A95L, but rather you watch these shows. So first of all, Brian, you have to watch specific shows. So if you don't watch this sort of stuff on Netflix, then what's the point, right, Brian? I mean, if this is not the stuff you watch, then what?
Well, that was the big argument last year with House of the Dragon. Was hey, that one particular show or Game of Thrones. Other than that, you're fine. So sometimes you may not even encounter any of these issues. But a lot of times we are making choices based on one particular game or one particular scene. That's what we always pause and look at things. To me, the three of them are close enough. The other preferences are operating system, sound, gaming, those things are more important. The question for you guys is, again, this late in the year, the fact that they are all that close, do you find the A95L to be worth it? Or do you go with the G3 or the S95C, which are among the first TVs released this year? Not to mention, FOMO, that both the S95C and the G3 have also taken their share of updates. They've had time to refine everything, and Sony's on its first update. So is that going to be a disadvantage? I would say it has to be. Yeah, John, the Blue Dragon scene. And so James said you don't watch Netflix, you watch typically Apple TV shows. Also in the comments, let us know what streaming service you watch most. Is it Hulu, Prime, Netflix? What are you guys watching? Max?
Yes, let us know.
Let us know. Because, I mean, obviously, I think a lot of Max FOMO is still 1080p. But I think all three of these up convert pretty well, even the S95C. The S95C struggles with below 1080p FOMO. Does fine with 1080p, but just below that it struggles.
Yeah, I mean, it's very content dependent. So we're putting this on, I'm looking for a Dolby Vision. So this is Dolby Vision Bright, because a lot of people watch Dolby Vision Bright, and it'll make it easier for you to see the differences in Dolby Vision, because the Sony and Dolby Vision, I don't know if you guys will be able to catch it actually, but we'll try it and see what happens.
Lisa says Disney, Netflix. Crypto says Prime, Hulu, Disney, Paramount, Netflix. And are you guys using a external device, or you guys use the TVs? The TVs in-house apps. Mustafa said, "I'm a grown man. I watch TV, not services."
I just show her lips.
That's awesome.
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry.
Oh man. Lisa says no external. John says the NVIDIA Shield, Big C-Dub, Superbox Pro, Apple TV 4K, Shield Pro. All right, a lot of external devices, FOMO. Lisa is
so
straight up.
Let me take myself out. All right, so A95L in the middle, Dolby Vision Bright, G3 on the right, Dolby Vision Bright, S95C on the left, filmmaker mode, but in tone mapping active, just to kind of match the brightness. It's a touch brighter, but what I wanted to show, and I think it probably shows in YouTube. Yeah, I'm double checking YouTube. So her lips are definitely redder. Even on YouTube, changing the compression of my sensor being hypersensitive to the blue on the WOLED, her lips are a touch redder in Dolby Vision, but in regular HDR, that's not the case. It matches the S95C more, and the S95C almost perfectly, well, nearly perfectly matches the G3, because both have been calibrated. And I know on YouTube it'll be slightly different, but the S95C and the G3, those lips match nearly perfectly. The Sony in Dolby Vision has a touch of red. Her face is a little bit more flushed, and her lips are a bit more magenta, like fuchsia almost, right? And so, for those of you who are watching Dolby Vision, and I'm a fan of Dolby Vision, I get a Sony. You're gonna love it if you like that extra punch. And Brian, maybe this is why you would get the A95L, because you want the extra punch. What do you think about that?
Well, I like the punch. I can see that in the G3, there's more color in the sky. There's more of a blue, but the entire image is more dim. I still like the S95C. It clips a little bit there, but I guess I'm trying to separate. And again, I'm still a gamer, but for overall, this chick's face. I think she's like, "Why are you pausing my face?" I think overall, the A95L will most likely come out as the best all around for movies. No surprise, as that's Sony's signature. So,
yes.
Andrew, why is Brian in an apartment now? This is my studio.
Yes, your new studio.
I do still have a house. I do still have a home. I didn't get kicked out. Don't worry. And this 65-inch TV will be gone in a few weeks.
Yeah. And again, this is Dolby Vision on the Sony. So the Sony in Dolby Vision, you see it's a touch more skin tone, I guess is the best way to say it, right? Where the, we take it down from act, because it might be a little bit too bright. It's easier to see these colors. Let me take it down to static again.
I was honestly worried, Dad. Don't worry, Andrew. Don't worry, Pops.
We're just having fun, because all you guys are spending a lot of money, and you do want to have an idea. Oops, vivid. No bueno. Okay. An idea.
Now the G3 is the brightest one.
Oh yeah, no, the G3, it's easy to get it bright with dynamic tone mapping. Okay.
Brian's wife gets the house, he gets the TVs. Uh,
All right. So how many of you like the Sony Dolby Vision color? Honestly, if it wasn't for the TVs next to it, I think it looked great. It looks well saturated, but the sky, if it's just a plain blue sky, then you notice, wait, is that like a touch bit more magenta than it should be? But only because I have the other TVs next to it. Otherwise, I would not notice this. Again, the Sony A95L is in the center.
G3 is on the right, S95C is on the far left.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Okay, so Ahmed is convinced he wants to get the A95L, burning a hole in my wallet while putting a smile. I think Ahmed already got it, right, Ahmed? Good for you.
Yeah, good for you. We have a couple super chats. I think we have 3 of them, starting with
Okay, so let's hit the super chats. Thank you, everyone, for supporting the channel. Let me go to the beginning. I know you guys have been so patient. Oh, and of course, I promised someone that I'd put in their super chats. So let me get to that one first. I missed his super chat yesterday, so I wanted to make sure I captured that. So let's put that one in first. All right. Jesse Viviano yesterday asked, I just had this idea with the setup. YouTube TV, Jesse, if you're still here, here's your super chat from yesterday. YouTube TV, DirecTV Stream, Sling, Hulu, Fubo, and other streaming services, video and audio quality battle royale. Who has the best quality, and does more money mean more quality? So Jesse, if you caught all of my streams this week, what did we notice? In native app, it can be a completely different quality. And I noticed that the quality, video quality, the bitrate definitely drops. SDR was used in YouTube TV on the Sony, right? And same with on the Samsung, also SDR. SDR is a lower bitrate. No bueno, right? And so that's something that you might want to consider, because then if you're doing an external streamer, which one? Apple TV, Chromecast, Fire TV, Roku Stick, and Roku already announced that they're going to stop making any more external streamers. I mean, what they have now is great.
Really?
But, they're saying that their external streamer sales are declining significantly. All of their sales are with the Roku as the OS of the TV, like on a TCL or a Hisense, right? That's where they're seeing most use, but people are not buying their external streamers, and I'm sure Chromecast will start seeing the same thing, because tell me, aren't you guys more compelled by the convenience of the native app? So Jesse, here's the issue. I'll be comparing native apps, but I already know the native app will fall behind the Apple TV in bitrate quality. So I could already tell you, if it's on Apple TV, it's likely better than if it's on your native app, unless it's Sony Bravia Court, which is only movies, right? They're not going to show Netflix on Bravia Court. So thank you for that super chat, Jesse. All right, now we'll get to today's super chats. But what do you think of Roku announcing that they're seeing a drop in external streamer sales while they're seeing a rise in using Roku OS on TVs?
I mean, does that really even out? And also, I think Roku, they're pretty reliable. So, I mean, how many of those do you need to buy? I know the way you and I test TVs, I go through a lot of Fire Sticks.
Yeah.
So they just kind of fail. But I think for most people, they're not used anywhere near as much as we do. And plus, I think you and I unplug and plug them in all the time. So I think it just becomes redundant. People typically, they use them once and that's it.
Agreed. You would buy one Roku stick and it would last a very long time.
Well, and it seems like, I think, FOMO, if you're going to buy the high quality one, you're looking at the NVIDIA or the Apple TV. A Roku is a buy it once and that's it, you're done. You don't buy it again to get the best picture quality, I think.
Exactly. And let me adjust this. A second. All right.
What's up, Getty G-Man?
All right, Getty G-Man. Thank you for the super chat. A95K and A95L showdown in the near future, FOMO. Unfortunately, I won't be the one doing it because I do not want to carry. Oh, wait, I'm out of focus. There we go. I do not want to carry the A95K back here because I love the A95L. I like their stand. It's easier to maneuver because I'm able to lift it up, a few inches. My A95K is flat on the table, and right now it's sitting on the table. Ah, man, it's so just getting my
It's
fingers
so heavy.
under it.
It's so heavy too, man. That TV,
Oh
because
yeah,
it
that
has that.
stand is so heavy. It's like,
Do
15
you keep
pounds.
yours, FOMO? Do you keep yours flat to the table, or do you have that little up? Do you have it up in that second position? Or
So
you
in
you
the
flush?
studio, I'm actually hanging on a mount, but originally I was going to have it just below the G3.
Okay.
But then, why I didn't. What happened was when I put it on my stand, I'm like, wait a minute. The stand is smaller than the TV width. It's not going to stand. So I had to put it next to the G3 instead. I need to ship in that two-tiered mount that we use at M-Wave so I can hang
Yep.
them both. So that's what I'll be doing,
Gotcha.
in the off season is replace all
Mhm.
of my mounts with the two-tier mounts that we used. That way
There we
I don't
go.
have to use a stand at all. I'll just hang them all. But yeah, so I apologize, Getty G man. But all I can tell
Yeah.
you is this: the A95L specular highlights will be slightly brighter. Vivid mode will be slightly brighter. However, part of this, okay, so you have to remember this is a second gen panel. They've been told by Samsung that it can get a little bit brighter and be twice as durable. Maybe this is what's giving Sony the confidence to push it that hard. So, but Lisa has the A95K. I don't think she's complaining that's not bright enough, right, Lisa?
I think I think Lisa was maybe thinking about the A80L now
Oh,
for
yeah. I mean,
77.
for streaming, that's fine, right? Just
Oh, it's a great
regular
TV.
everyday streaming.
Lisa says she has it flush in the front. I like how it looks flush, but it's not an easy TV to move. That's for sure. And the TV
Yeah.
behind me, guys, is the U7K from Hisense. But Robert actually got in today the UX FOMO. It is there in the store
Oh, he's got the UX today?
at 85 inches.
Nice.
Yes, he did.
So that's all right. Let's go down more. Oh, there's one more super chat. Hey, Tomas 83. In cinema mode, the G3, which I have, is so dark. Dolby Vision. If you're in a bright room, absolutely, Tomas. Dolby Vision Cinema was graded in a dark room, in a reference dark room, which we're not in, right? So you need to be in Cinema Home in Dolby Vision, maybe even Cinema, not Cinema, but Vivid, right? Dolby Vision Vivid, depending on how bright your room is. So that's the issue with HDR in general, not just Dolby Vision. HDR is graded in a completely dark room. That means the dark areas are really dark and the bright areas are really bright. And ultimately, your room may be too dark for HDR content if it's reference level profile, meaning you're in a filmmaker mode. You might have to go to Cinema Home instead of filmmaker mode. And on the S95C, S90C, you might have to enable active or even go to standard mode. And on the A95L, brightness preferred or go to standard mode as well. So yeah, and also Dolby Vision Dark is different from model to model. But the G3 Dolby Vision Dark is accurate because it looks very similar to the Sony in Dolby Vision Dark other than the color. So definitely go to Cinema Home. Brian, are you a Dolby Vision fan? I forgot to ask you.
I do like Dolby Vision. I haven't always loved the Sony's implementation of it in the past. On my A80L or my A80J, it was very dark fun. We talked about how it only had the two presets. It was dark and then Dolby Vision bright, I believe. So I do like it. I just don't think it's necessary. I think when I was thinking about Dolby Vision back when you and I would talk 3 or 4 years ago, it was meant to be this 4,000 nit brighter, and it really is tend to be a more colorful but slightly darker image. It's sometimes very dark. And I
Right.
think we've talked about Dolby Vision implementation being tacked on to a lot of content instead of being native. So to me, it's not something I really care about. I'd actually disable it most times if I could. So that's why I'm considering still a Samsung, which would be the QN95C.
And We have a super chat from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. In person,
Lisa.
how much of an improvement is the A95L from the A95K? So you have to choose the right content that I was showing you guys, right? Which is specifically, you have to choose, oh, I have to connect my splitter back to the S95C. You have to have
Samsung,
those
love you,
bright
baby.
scenes like you're seeing in The Witcher. Like this scene here, this is not a bright scene. All the TVs look very similar. Your A95K, your A95L. But in the scenes where in the past, the A95K was not bright enough, not as bright as the S95C, it is solved now, right? So when I had compared even the S95B, last year was S95B, right? Or S94B, the last year's QD OLED. The A95K in those brightest areas was not bright enough, although it's brighter than the G2. But then the G3 came in, and it was definitely, those scenes was brighter than A95K. However, maybe the most recent firmware update brightened it up. That's another thing, is it appears that Sony is not afraid to update their firmware to make their TVs a bit better. Now, I don't know if the firmware is going to positively improve the brightness in A95K though. So that's something that I don't know. So someone's going to have to measure and let us know that.
And FOMO, you felt like the A95K last year could easily get brighter, but they kept it back just to retain that accuracy. So it wasn't they didn't have the capability.
Durability. I think
okay.
Sony did it for durability. Oh, 1 second. Let me move this over.
Sure, go ahead. All right, guys.
I gotta
Again, thank you
sure
so much
all the
for
TVs
joining
are the
us
same.
this evening. Got 418 in the chat. Please consider liking and subscribing to both FOMO and myself, which is Brian's Tech Therapy. Give us a like, please.
So now they're all running HDR, no native app, and they look very similar. Except the Sony is a little bit, you know, slightly brightened up a bit, a touch, right, in HDR. Let me see. I want to make sure I have it in the right mode. Yep, professional. I think it's on gradation preferred.
So Kindly Balance says, really impressed with the G3 for the money. And that's the interesting thing when you have a high-end TV come out earlier in the year, is that then it starts to become, right, FOMO? Hey, for the money, the G3, or for the money, the S95C. So that's what's so interesting about when these TVs release. And it's something we're definitely going to ask Sony about during the shootout is, you know, why so late? And you are kind of stuck having to charge a premium for against the other high-end TVs that were, you know, cheaper now.
And well, you know, if you're going to say for the money, how can you not buy the S90C at any size? 55-inch. Hey, the 55-inch right now is like
77.
Yeah, it's like $14.99. The 77-inch is like $2,500, $24.99 at Best Buy, and a little bit cheaper at Samsung's own site. And on Black Friday, it may drop another $100. Samsung is so aggressively moving the S90C, and the image quality in the S90C is so close to the S95C that you might as well call it the S95C as far as I'm concerned. That is a value leader. The G3, for me, the biggest disappointment is the audio. The audio is just unacceptable for this price.
Well, and also, I know KG had mentioned last time, same with Keep It Classy or Cecil, was that they feel the gaming has taken a step back, which I haven't noticed because the gaming was fine when I used it at launch. But again, I haven't used the G3 like that since then. But for those of you that have the G3, what are your thoughts on its gaming capabilities in comparison to, say, the C2 or the C1 or G2, I should say?
Well, we saw the G3 at, I can't imagine it was so long ago. Remember,
it was the beginning.
Okay, everyone, now if you guys are new to the channel, check out our first live stream review of the year back in early April, I want to say, late March, early April.
Yeah.
It was a shootout between the G3, the G2, the S95C, and the Q900C. Gaming as well, and at the time, early firmware, obviously, and you know, who knows what has changed since then, but initially, it was a shocker that the S95C SDR gaming was as bright as the 900C. Now, I know 900C has since then gotten even a little bit brighter in gaming, possibly, but the S95C was so impressive. And HDR gaming, everything. And
Everything,
the
yeah.
G3 SDR gaming was so dim. Now, obviously, many of you who are G3 fans, you know there are certain settings that you can put it in to get it brighter. But ultimately, we left saying, okay, S95C is changing the landscape in terms of it's easy to get bright and punchy and gaming, but what happens when the A95L comes out? Where we left then, right? So
Yeah. I
we
can't wait to
felt
game
the
them.
G3 was bright, but in gaming, it wasn't so bright enough. And in regular content, it didn't feel like it separated itself from the S95C. It felt like the two were trading blows in brightness. So this is why the shootout was necessary, right? John Riffermato did calibrate both TVs, but this is before any of them received a significant firmware update.
Yep.
So yeah,
It was so
it's
early days, bro, early days.
definitely.
And we had, I think you had the G3 first at your home, right? Was that what it was? What did you have? You had the G3, but it was still really early because you had the G3, then came to the store in New York.
1 second. Let me adjust the volume. Okay. Hopefully my volume matches Brian's now, Giddy G man. Thank you for letting me know. All right, so I'm sorry, Brian. What was your question?
No, I said, didn't you have the G3 early yourself?
Yes, right after or right before the shootout, I got the G3 from Value Electronics.
Yep.
I didn't get a chance to thoroughly test it, but I did compare it to the A95K, and I think it wiped the floor with the A95K. I mean, it was bright, and I announced at the time that had this G3 been at the shootout in 2022, it
Yep.
would have won. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, without a doubt. However, we are now in 2023, and the A95L, much anticipated, has, I think, caught up to the G3 as far as real content is concerned. And although sports, it still runs wild, but things like what we're watching in The Witcher, you know,
Yeah.
the Sony, possibly even brighter than the S95C. But I'll tell you this, the S95C with YouTube TV content, not as clear as either the Sony or the G3. Brightness, it is right behind the G3, but clarity and resolution, it feels a little soft in YouTube TV.
Okay.
So for sports, I would still go with the G3. The G3 is definitely the sports watcher OLED TV. The S95C is not. It's bright, but that's not enough. The clarity on the G3 matches the Sony, but brighter. The Sony preserves clarity, text, all that great stuff, but the G3 is better at it for sports. And it's bright. The S95C brute forces its way through it, but it's processing definitely with, and you know, let's be fair, YouTube TV, whether it's SDR or HDR streaming via HDMI, it's 720p. But the S95C with a 720p content could not clean it up as well as the Sony or the G3. So if you guys are watching 50% sports or more, and that's what's important to you, then go with the G3. Because all this additional color volume doesn't matter.
That shot right there, the A95 is better by miles, though. The shot you have paused right now, the
The
A95L looks
A95?
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you
I
notice
mean, that's
that skin tone? This is what
well,
Sony's, and it's slightly brighter, but the skin tone, you know, this is a Sony thing.
it's a lot brighter. The whites are much brighter. All the shadow detail is all there.
Wait, is it
Those,
possible that, I'm sorry, so they're all in HDR. Is it possible that the other two are dimming? Because I held it, right?
I
So
don't
here we
know.
are.
I
So let's
mean,
play
I
this
saw I
through.
saw it. I saw it pretty early.
Okay. Yeah, it does look brighter, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But then it's not calibrated, so it's possible. It's possible once it's calibrated, it should be a touch. I mean, maybe the EOTF, it's possible it's not following EOTF. Maybe it's doing the Samsung thing, Brian, because it's watching Samsung sales and it's a bit, how you describe it, envious of those sales and it's punching it up because it should not be brighter. Let me double check that's not on brightness preferred. Yeah, gradation preferred. Let me turn it off and see. Oh, It got brighter. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off. For whatever reason, Gradation Preferred in this scene made it slightly brighter, or maybe for this episode. So Gradation Preferred doesn't always bring brightness down, by the way. So it's a little bit closer, but it's still brighter. Let me take my exposure down so you guys can see.
Yeah, see, but I think in a shot like that, FOMO, for those of us that are enthusiasts, that's where I wouldn't mind spending the money, to be honest. In a film, anyway. You know, maybe not in sports.
Right.
Buddy Love has a super chat. We have quite a few super chats, I think, FOMO. Oh, we have a question. Is live color on, FOMO, or no?
Oh, good question. I am not one to assume anything at this point. It should be off, but let's double check. I mean, you're right. No wonder the color is off. Live color is on.
There we go. All right. Take two. All right, guys. I'm Brian from Tech Therapy. Let's run it back. Does that change it? No, not really. It's still bright.
You know?
Well, that and seeing it probably. Wow, it looks so much. It does look a lot brighter.
Doesn't it look good? Okay, so I know Classy is going to measure everything. And if he comes back and he says Sony's EOTF is a bit hopped up, you know what all of you are going to do? You're not going to call a calibrator. You're like, forget it. I like it as it is. Yeah. So a reminder,
I wouldn't.
The S95C on the left and the G3 on the right is calibrated. That's why they actually match in their luminance. The Sony is slightly brighter, but it's not calibrated. Ladies and gentlemen, do you want it calibrated? Brian, how do you respond?
You know, I think my opinion with Sony this year, even with the X95L, I wouldn't really calibrate any of them. I think that they're that good out of the box. But when you get into Master Series, I really don't think you need, not to take business away from our friends in the calibrating industry, but I think they're good enough on their own to avoid calibrating them, to save the money on that, without a doubt. Especially since the other two are calibrated here, FOMO. It looks spot on.
And so just to be fair to Sony, it's only brighter. The colors are very similar in HDR. Now, you guys saw earlier the Dolby Vision, that red was a bit maybe too red, too magenta. In regular HDR, the colors match perfectly, in my opinion, right? The white point may be slightly off, but not important enough to have you pay $500 to calibrate. What you might end up is getting a Sony that's slightly dimmer, because how well the S95C and G3 match in their brightness, the Sony just feels slightly brighter. And if that's inaccurate, you're gonna be complaining that now that your TV is accurate, it's slightly dimmer. Why do it? If you're in a brighter room, this is fine. Now, if you're in a dark room, maybe it's too bright, right? So there is no right answer. I just had to bring that out there. Now, Gunnar has a super chat. Thank you, from Norway. S90C and G3 is the same price. Which is best? So in America, even though the S90C is cheaper, I still chose it as my editor's choice, the 77-inch. I chose that over the G3. It wasn't even because it's less expensive necessarily. I just find the S90C to be an amazing value, but then it's all use case. If you're watching lots of football, soccer, sports, hockey, right, Norway, the G3 may be the TV for you. If you like to watch in vivid mode, that G3 is the brightest vivid mode I have seen. It continues to be the brightest vivid mode. So Gunnar, let us know, what are you watching? And if you're gaming, then maybe the S90C, right? So there's just so many things. But Brian, what would you suggest for Gunnar?
So I'd probably go G3 over the S90C. Just I feel it's a better TV all around. But because I think the S95C and the G3 are neck and neck, almost tied. I think the S90C is just a little step down. So I'd probably still go G3 over the S90C. Okay. Then I think the Tizen becomes part of the conversation. And if you like, you have to buy the stand. So there are issues with that.
Now, this is one I want to address. The S95C is a no-go if you're one of the lucky ones that can run games at 4K 144. Is there a TV that can consistently run 4K 144? I don't think any TV could be trusted. And I'm not going to pick or not pick on the S95C or S90C. I've spoken to a lot of gamers who have both S90C and S95C, and they're like, dropouts could still be a thing for them. I just think 144 might be too much for these TVs.
So kite sims, I actually had dropouts on the Q195C, which doesn't have the one connect box. And was it dropped out to where the game would crash? No, it was almost like it would lose HDMI for a second and go back, but it didn't do that on 4K 120. So I think to your point, FOMO, I think we're going to have to look at 4K 120 being the kind of the standard.
And this is a question I love. Thank you for the super chat, Getty. How much
Mhm.
better the C3 and the G3? This is one that is so obvious to me.
Yeah. Now,
If
anyway.
you're in, I mean, if you're watching bedroom at night, get the C3. It doesn't need to be that bright, but the
Mhm.
G3 is phenomenally bright. I mean, we are
Yeah.
talking it compared to the C3, vivid mode, right? When you let it push itself, whether it's Dolby Vision bright, whether it's HDR10, that Witcher scene we saw,
Mhm.
the G3 can get you there more accurately than the C3 if it's HDR. In SDR, they're the same, except sports, you can get the G3 brighter in vivid mode. But if you need HDR, if you need HDR gaming to be that extra pop, the G3 with MLA at the 77-inch, 65 and 55-inch size, knockout. But 83-inch size, get the C3 because likely they're identical because the 83-inch size does not have the MLA. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's a big difference. When I compared the
is.
77-inch G3 to the 83-inch G3, it was a massive difference. I was shocked at how different it was. But FOMO, put into context for them why we're talking about vivid and dynamic so much. I think they're wondering why we don't watch TV in those modes, but you're really there, almost like the Spears and Munsell disc, pushing it to 4,000 nits, 2,000 nits. That's why you're putting them in these presets, correct?
Yes. So let's talk about that real quick. And hey, Michael.
Because we don't typically. Hey, Michael, what's up, brother? We don't typically watch
Okay,
TVs in those presets. Go
so
ahead.
actually, you know what? Before we jump in, I just want to show this off to you guys. People were complaining the ASBL on the Sony after the firmware update. Look how aggressive the ASBL is on the Samsung. So
Is it
I'm
even on
letting this
though, or is that
hold, right?
Dolby Vision? It's
Right.
that's
So
not
this is
on,
not
is it?
Dolby Vision. This is HDR. So and this is not gaming. This doesn't mean that gaming is going to hold on to it, but wow,
Bro,
the
that's not
A95L
aggressive,
is
bro.
holding
Those are
on to this
off.
brightness, right?
Those are turned off. God damn.
So the
Wow.
S95C aggressively dimming to protect
Wow.
itself, right? The A95L is like, forget the warranty. Let's run
Oh
amok and
man.
holding on to
Oh,
that brightness. And the G3, it's right in the between. And G3, LG, by the way, is very cognizant of burn-in. That's why,
yeah.
but they're not as aggressive as Samsung. But look at Sony. What the heck? It's only a 1-year warranty. Let's do it. I mean, this is
Yeah, yeah.
crazy.
Like, hey, do your best.
Let's have
Whatever you
fun.
need.
So
Oh,
I had to share that.
I got Mark Jessamy up in the chat. Mark, what's up, brother?
Now let's answer your question. Vivid mode.
Love you, brother.
Okay, so there are two primary reasons. The first and most important is this. Sony specifically said, in vivid mode, 200% brighter. Okay, suddenly vivid mode is a thing. And then within that same reason, you'll be surprised how often I hear secretly from Samsung owners, whether it's a direct message or tweet or whatnot. Hey, don't tell anyone, but I love dynamic mode. That's why I get my Samsung. No other TV has this amazing dynamic mode. I'm like, really? And like, yeah, that's why, just letting you know, when I get a Samsung, it's always in dynamic mode. And
That's right.
all the TVs know, right? The TV makers know what you're watching. As long as you're connected to the internet, they know exactly what mode you're watching, what the most popular modes are. Samsung knows that, and one of them was actually a Samsung, I don't want to say employee, they're actually on the Samsung corporate team, so he's more than just an employee, but he has shared with me that most of their users like dynamic mode. That is their core. You guys are not their core. And
Yeah.
the Sony TV maker, they're like, okay, if this is the case, we need to make sure our vivid mode can compete. And look at the LG, look at their vivid mode, right? Even though we laugh at vivid mode, you guys, of course we do the accurate mode, the professional mode, the cinema mode, all that stuff, that doesn't change. But I have to be honest with the mainstream audience as well. They want to see how good, how bright, how clear it can get. And so that's where
Yeah.
we're doing it. Sony advertising that its vivid mode is so much brighter, and it is, it's brighter, but also the reality of the consumer base, they actually want to see what vivid mode is like because Well, look at your room, Brian. How bright your room is,
Yeah,
right? Oh, that's the U7K. What mode is it in?
that is in. I believe it's in theater mode.
Is there any way you could put it in vivid mode for us to see if it gets any brighter? Because you're actually in a bright room. I've seen the windows in your room. You got all the windows open. You're in a bright room. People who are in a bright room, they're actually watching in vivid mode. And it's just, it's something that I never stopped to think about until enough of you reached out to me and says, hey, I watch either in dynamic mode, or if it's a serious movie, the lights off, okay, I'll go into a movie mode. But oh my gosh, look at that. Look, that thing is so bright, it's like blown out. The exposure is
So
blown it out.
standard's actually the brighter one in this preset,
Oh
but
yeah? Okay.
there's Vivid's got more detail.
So here's a good comment. I don't think the enthusiasts who watch your streams use vivid mode. I could be wrong. For sports, so let me ask you, first, do you watch sports? And if you do, what mode do you watch it in? Because I would be surprised if you watch sports in any of the cinema modes that are a little bit darker.
I watched the standard.
Right, or standard, right? So actually, I could put it all in standard. You guys can see as well.
Yeah, I
But,
like standard better.
and I have to say, Sony's vivid mode is very accurate. As you can saw with the green, it has a gentle hand in standard mode. Capona has a good question. If your TV looks brighter in SDR than HDR, then you didn't spend a lot on the TV. So,
Okay, meaning that it's not real HDR. Okay.
actually, Capono, so this is such a well-packed question. So I did the comparison, YouTube TV on the Sony A95L, both of them, right? So I had two Sony A95Ls next to each other. One was the native app, YouTube TV in SDR, watching sports. The other one was a streaming HDR version of the exact same scene. And the SDR appeared brighter when in reality, the HDR specular highlights were brighter, but the rest of the scene was dimmer so that it can make that specular highlight brighter, which was a little ridiculous because on the one hand, helmets and everything popped, but then the rest of the scene felt dimmer. But if I looked at my meter, the specular highlights were at least 2 stops brighter than SDR, but SDR's entire scene was brighter. It was easy to read. So, I mean, which TV is brighter, right? HDR technically is brighter in the specular highlights, but the SDR, the entire APL felt brighter. So this is a complicated question, actually. So,
Well, because in HDR, I mean, everything is maxed out to compensate for that. That's why everything auto maxes, right? So that was always the big joke. Then how come my TV looks just as bright? But when you look at your SDR and you compare them, a lot of times your SDR brightness will be 30. So it kind of goes back down to that.
yep. And
The U7K is looking good though, huh? Damn.
look at that.
Man, Jesus. Too bad
And,
it's like
look,
an
there you
iPad behind
go.
me.
I use dynamic mode. Go ahead and bully me. I'm open.
Yeah, Pedro, don't worry, baby. You safe. You safe here. Don't worry.
Say it with pride, my friend. Say it with pride.
I know people that do.
And Lisa brings up a good point. DirecTV satellite, depending on how your satellite reception is, the Sony is definitely the way to go because it can make as many issues more tolerable than some other TVs. So great choice, Sony. Oh, hey, someone was asking Brian, when will the Hisense UX review be coming? I need to promo this.
So the
Tell
UX
us.
is actually at Value Electronics right now. However, because of how big it is, we have the other TVs are being calibrated, so we'll have to wait until Monday. So I'll be down there Monday. You'll see a UX short Monday night, and then the video will be up Tuesday.
Brian, is your TV behind you calibrated?
Nope. Look at this. Even this crawl right here looks good. That's a tough
It's
scene.
not.
No, it's not. The U7K is not calibrated.
Okay,
But
so this
I've
is a
been
great,
really impressed with it. I'll tell you that. I've been enjoying the U7K quite a bit.
here's a great question by Kindly Balanced. So just as I was surprised how many people buy expensive TVs and watch it in dynamic mode, I'm also equally shocked how many people buy $2,000 OLEDs to watch YouTube TV content. So
Yeah,
Kindly Balanced is one
that
such
is
person.
interesting.
Best
Yeah.
overall choice for YouTube TV content. I must say it is the Sony, either the A95K or A95L, and this is why. They take back, because you're on the internet, obviously watching YouTube TV, they take questionable content, and not just sports, that comes on YouTube TV, because YouTube TV is more than just sports, right? It has other content. They do such a good job of rendering and upscaling low bit rate and processing it and giving you
Yeah.
the right amount of shadow detail to make everything legible. It's not necessarily the brightest. That would be the G3 for sports. But for everything else, A95L nails it for me. So now, if I had the A95K right next to it, I'd probably get the A95K like Lisa has, right?
Yep.
Both of these TVs, Sony's focus has always been processing to get you the most pleasant image quality possible. So if you need a 77-inch and you're watching YouTube TV or YouTube content in general, the A95L 77-inch has it all, in my opinion. If you watch mostly sports, the G3, and
Yeah.
if you're doing a lot of gaming, then consider the S90C 77-inch. How about you,
Well,
Brian?
and FOMO, if you guys do like reality creation as a feature, it's better than ever this year on all of the XR clear TVs I've tested. Even the X93, which doesn't have XR clear, the reality creation can be brought almost to max without much noise, which is really new for me this year. A lot of times, reality creation, if you hit over a certain threshold, especially on the Z9K, if Terry's still here, you'll get a lot of aliasing in the image. This year, you can really use the reality creation. So if you're watching things like low bitrate content or upscaling, the best is going to be the Sony by, I think, quite a bit. 1080p, they all look fantastic. They all upscale, but we know that definitely Samsung lags a little bit behind in sub 1080p. But I think that's really their signature, especially this year, FOMO.
And I'm fiddling because in response to Lisa's comment that I might be breaking up with my lav mic, I'll switch over on
Break
the
up with it, brother.
fly to my other mic and see if it's better, because I got to learn how to do this just in case things fail, right? So let's see here.
We'll test a lot of the equipment, guys. The week of the shootout, we're going to be doing the
Checking.
calibration
Is this better,
live
Lisa?
streams.
Please let me know if this is better. I am now using my shotgun mic. I'll have a couple of
Shot.
these. So yeah, let me know if this sound is more consistent and or if it's worse. I mean, geez, right?
You got so much equipment.
Yeah, I do, don't I?
Hell
But
yeah.
it's, you got to balance all this
Briefcase.
equipment. Is the Google TV interface snappier this year with the A95L? No, it doesn't feel snappier. I don't know why. Occasionally, when I turn it on, I get a little bit of lag, but normally that's at startup and then it gets better. So it's not unbearable. Like right now, it feels snappy, but there are times when it isn't. So let's see. Let's start doing something here. There's a little bit of lag. Yeah, there's a little bit of lag. I mean, as you can see, it's 4 clicks behind. There you go. See how
Yeah.
it's skipping around
It's
like that?
never been very fast.
Yeah, I'm
What's up,
sorry,
Michael?
guys. And this is with the new MediaTek, by the way. So
Yeah.
it's not snappier. Now, see, it's working well now. But getting out of,
You gotta get it moving. It
and
needs momentum.
stretching, right? The N95
You're like,
needs to start
I wasn't
limbering up
ready.
its joints.
It's
Yeah,
like
it's not impressive.
it was kind of sleeping on a job.
But to be fair to the Sony, the S90C is similar. I mean, here, let's see. Let's give the S90C a shot at being snappy. Oh, more snappy. You saw that?
Yep.
I took it out and it's ready to go. So the S90C, its sleep mode, I guess, is a bit better. Let's see the G3 if it'll hop out of this faster. Yeah, G3 is it's moving around. It's doing its thing.
Or FOMO, your volume's too low now, they're saying.
My what?
Your volume's too low.
Okay, let me adjust it right now. Volume is too low. Oh,
Brian now louder than a marma.
is this better? Is this better? Checking,
I think
checking.
so.
Yep, yep.
They're blaming the gloves, bro. The
Yeah,
gloves
the
have
lack of the gloves,
a
right?
kystic.
And who says new TVs are better? I love my old X900F. It's extremely responsive. I love it.
Interesting. Oh, you know what I want to tell you guys, I have not told you yet, is that speaking of the X900F, it was the first TV that disabled local dimming when the content wasn't playing FOMO.
Mm-hmm.
And the X90L on its update, the local dimming is intact even in menus. Remember, I showed you that picture. We talked about it on another
Mm-hmm.
stream. So I mean, if that matters, that's pretty cool. But the X98 or X90F was the first one, 900F, to not do that, and everyone thought it was blooming. Remember? And then the content played. They're like, "Oh no, it's okay."
You
It
know,
came after the
you
900E.
bring up titles, and I noticed that on the Sony, on the native apps, their titles, they do a good job of dimming their
Yep.
titles a little bit more. So this year, the Sony, it feels like they're titling, if they recognize that as a title on the native app. Now, this is through the external. So let me put it on subtitles and see if it's, yeah, subtitles about the same on all three. But on the native app, it feels like, actually, you know what, let me
Oh,
try this one. I
Joe
think
says,
this is,
"I still love my 2007 Insignia. It goes toe to toe with these OLEDs." Hell yeah, it does. Insignia, amazing flagship, baby.
all right. And thank you, everyone, for coming by. I love it when you guys
Absolutely.
come here with your questions.
I don't know if we have any super chats from. I can't see them on the.
Yeah, let me scroll up. I think we got our super chats. Just want to make
Okay.
sure I take care of you guys there. Yeah. Oh, wait, Brian. Here we go.
Yes.
There is a super chat for you right here. Getty G Man asks, Brian, that U7K is popping. Is it calibrated?
It is not calibrated. No, it is straight out of the box.
And
And a lot of you guys during my comparison of the U7K U8K liked the U7K better, which I thought was pretty interesting, and it's a good deal cheaper as well.
now, I am personally very excited to see your impressions of the Hisense UX 85-inch. And
Yeah.
also, it will be at the shootout because now that it's at Value Electronics, we know it'll be at the shootout for the 85-inch. What did you call it? The big boys?
The
The,
yeah,
the
well, it's the heavyweight division,
the
but
heavyweight division, we're going to have the 85-inch UX versus the Sony X95L
yep,
versus, I think the Z9K will be there. The QN900C will be there.
yep,
So you guys will see a combination of 8K, 4K, just generally flagship 85-inch TVs.
yep,
And in
big
a
boys.
different room, I wish it was in the same room, but in a different room, we'll have the 98-inch TVs so we could see what they look like. But your expectations of the Hisense UX, given that it
I
has
mean,
5,000 dimming zones, the only TV with 5,000 dimming zones.
so and we were talking about this offline. I didn't realize, or I did know, but you reminded me that the UX that we saw at CES was actually the 8K version, which was only in, I believe, in Europe. So I'm dying to see it because if it's good enough, that will be my next TV. So I already have the go ahead that it'll go to the shootout and then to my house. So it's if it does really well. So I'll be able to really for me, you'll see me unbox it, you'll see me set it up, we'll game on it. But when you see it at the shootout, that's when I can actually like FOMO. Think about it. If I want my TV reviewed, having all the judges review it, FOMO and all you guys in the chat reviewing it, that'll make the decision. So you guys will actually choose my next TV at the Value Electronics shootout in the
And
85-inch division.
I want to answer Gunar's question here, or his
Mhm.
comment. A95L is pushing brightness, yes, it is slightly brighter. So it's out of calibration. So this is the strange thing. I was talking to Classy saying, hey, I noticed this. Would calibration make it less bright? He goes, as a matter of fact, it might even get brighter with calibration. He
Well,
doesn't think
wow, I've never heard
calibration,
that.
in this case, because we were talking about what I'm seeing, he we're at a point where, first of all, the Sony didn't push green and blue. Okay, normally the trick TV makers use, and this is what Samsung used to do, is, and you see it in vivid mode, right? You get a scene cool, add blue, and it feels brighter. Add green and it feels brighter, and it gets brighter. Or on WOLED, push that white a little bit harder, right? Desaturate the colors. The Sony, the colors were not affected. It's just higher luminance.
Yep.
And that doesn't mean that it's necessarily, it doesn't mean that calibration would necessarily make it less bright.
Mm-hmm.
It may stay the same. So,
I've never seen it make it brighter, but that would be interesting.
yeah, because at most it may take some of the red down. That doesn't make it less bright. Just something to think about. Okay, so wait. Brian, are you ready? Lisa. So you know how Lisa's like, you're cutting in and out audio, right? So here's her comment. Wait, I just switched my Wi-Fi. It was me.
My bad. Like that. I love when people watch my videos. They're like, yo, why is it in 480p? I'm like, that's you, bro.
It's like,
I didn't
oh,
film it in
go
480p.
fix it. Like, I can't see you. What? You can't see me. Oh, I love you, Lisa.
What's up, Dwayne?
But it's good for me to test all my audio because this is why I told you I have contingencies, right? So I have this. So in case my lav mic
Of
goes
course.
out, how quickly does it take for me to swap mics and everything? Because at the shootout, we're gonna go for 8
Yeah.
hours, my friends. And you know, Brian might go to the restroom. FOMO, I just flushed the lav mic. You have another one.
Yeah. Be sitting there whistling.
Things happen, right? You'll be
Hot
like,
mic. Hot mic.
what's that flushing sound? And then
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh, my
what
bad.
happened, right? Like, I have 2 sets of these lav mics just in case, right? I'm gonna
Nice.
have 2 sets
Very
of
cool.
these. You know, Caleb drops one, right? These are reserved for Caleb and our interviewees, and our lav mics are for us. So definitely, it's when you're on a broadcast that I think is very important to me. I mean, a lot of people are like, it's a YouTube broadcast,
Absolutely.
whatever. Brian and I have been preparing for this day since what, CES? We
Well, yeah,
told Robert,
CES.
yeah,
Yeah, CES, and then we did our M Wave was kind of an impromptu, shot of what we could do together, and I think this is going to be our Super Bowl.
agreed. This is our Super Bowl. We started the year at CES, right? It's the season. It's the TV season at the beginning of the year. And then you have our pre-game with the G3 versus S95C, no A95L. And then as the reviews come out, you have individual fights, right? The U8K comes out, the QM8 comes out, and then suddenly the A95L, and then the UX is here. And now we get the super fight, the TV
And
shootout at the end of the year.
wait till our CES footage, because FOMO and I already have our rooms booked. We're staying in the same hotel. We're going to be working through the night, so we're going to be hanging out. It'll be more content all through CES. So the coverage will be, you'll get videos up the evening of. I mean, I did that already, but we'll be doing a lot more of that this year,
Yeah.
or next year, I should say.
Thank you for the super chat, Wes. Sony says XR Clear Image can detect when an input source isn't a clean 4K image, such as a 4K player, upscaling 480p DVD, 1080p Blu-ray. Have you noticed any upscaling improvements there? Definitely, and I think you guys saw this on YouTube TV, right? And we'll do it again for you, Wes, just for you. YouTube TV, although the LG is brighter, the Sony had the best resolution, I guess is the best way to say it, and it's 720p. So in the 720p content, actually I'll switch to it right now and show you. The Samsung had the softest image, and this is why people complain that Samsung doesn't look at a YouTube TV. It doesn't scale 720p low bit rate as well as the Sony and the LG. And the Sony to me had the best of the group in terms of contrast, whereas in terms of gradient detail, whereas the LG has the best brightness contrast for sports. So let's try YouTube TV non-sporting content. And in the meantime, if you can handle the chat, my friend, I'll do
You
that
got it.
for the team.
DP Calibrations, what's up, Dwayne? So hopefully we're gonna see Dwayne over at CES this year. What's up, my friend? He does some calibration. If you're looking for him, Dwayne, let him know where they can find you, because we've been all with Dwayne since his whole journey of actually getting certified. So we'll get him on the channel soon. Shout out to my boy. Let's see what else we got. Sorry, I got some teenagers screaming outside. CJ, Brian talked me into my LG CX, still going strong. I'm glad you're still loving it. Pedro Martins, FOMO or Brian, is there any chance to see the S95 here after the update 1520? Probably not. I don't think FOMO has the S95B anymore. We only have so many. We're not like ratings where they keep their TVs forever. They have like a warehouse.
So this is straight out of Compton, 720p.
Oh, straight out of Compton.
Because we rarely use straight out of Compton, right? Let me turn up the exposure so we can see some of this detail here.
Ahmed Doshin said, Brian, it's going to be the A95L. Save you some time. Sorry, bro. The A95L is too small. I am in the heavyweight division, so only 80 and up for me. So if I wanted a 77, I would have had the S95C already. Getty G-Man, is the QM8 going to be in the showdown? Actually, the QM8 is actually not going to be in the shootout. So maybe FOMO can help elaborate on that. Unfortunately, it's not going to be there. Yes, I don't think TCL wants it there.
Okay. So here we have straight out of Compton. And as you can see in this scene, the G3 is, well, let's make sure it's on the same.
So guys, the G3 is on the right, the A95L is in the middle, and the S95C is on the left.
G3 is in filmmaker mode, which is the calibrated mode. The Sony is it should be in professional mode, and it is. And the Samsung should be static filmmaker mode. And let's double check that it's static. Yes, it is. Okay. And the source is YouTube TV, 720p, and it's regular H. Well, you know what? The Sony will tell me if it's HDR or SDR. So let's see. And it is HDR. Okay. This is what you're going to get. Which one do you like better? So looking on both my YouTube monitor, my monitor, and what I see in my eyes, the Sony gives you the best detail. You have the most subtle detail. The G3 feels a little bit crushed, and this is lower quality content. The Samsung, everything's slightly lifted. So the Sony's right in between, and my exposure is a little bit high. Let me turn it down.
And it looks like the Samsung almost has a greenish look to it, FOMO.
Yeah, that's been a complaint about the Samsung.
So yeah, the A95L much better here.
Yeah, and let's try another movie or another scene. Let me see if I can choose something that's less. Okay, here's a brighter scene. This is a great one. It has contrast. Okay, this is actually a really good scene right here.
Yeah, I like the G3 here though. It's darker, but I like it. I like it looks better. But I think the A95 now. Oh, I was gonna say, wow, they just dimmed.
So the Sony is slightly brighter than the others. And 1 second. Close the door.
Yeah, it's a reflection on the A95L.
All right. And I want to turn up exposure a little bit more because the dynamic range of my camera is not good enough to capture everything. So I'm going to err on the side of slightly overexposing. So you can see the skin details. A little bit more. So the sky, really there's no color in the sky, so it's okay. You don't see anything in the sky. Okay. All right. Oh, wow. So the G3 and the S95C are calibrated. The Sony is not. And let me see. Are we at 720p? Yeah, this looks pretty good. They all look good enough. I'm not going to say, oh, no, it's not good enough.
But the A95L again is a lot brighter.
Yeah, it is. It is brighter. Hey, let's see a Bombshell. I'm just throwing. Oh, you know what? Knives Out. There's a lot of good detail here. Everyone loves Knives Out. Watch now.
You don't have that Dr. Sleep, do you?
If Dr. Sleep is on here, Oh, it's a commercial. Oh, sorry guys, let's watch this commercial real quick. You know, that lasagna looks great in all three TVs. Yeah, I just pitched for the Olive Garden.
There goes
All right,
Take a moment to
TNT,
thank
let's
you
do
for our
this.
sponsor, Olive Garden. Get that all-you-can-eat bread, baby. Was it breadsticks at Olive Garden?
Oh, here's a great scene. She's got hair, sweater, so there's good detail in this scene. All right. Let me tell you what.
A
You
good
know what? Let me
detail
try to get
on
something
that.
there's less movement. Okay, here we go. And let me see the resolution here. I obviously want to use a lower resolution. So 720p, they all look good. Let's challenge them further, 480p.
Now we're using what, the Chromecast at this point,
Yes,
FOMO?
Chromecast, YouTube TV.
Okay.
And it doesn't appear to have a 480p version. Let's go back to 720p. Or maybe it's just, I just asked too much of it.
Now everyone's talking about Olive Garden. Good job. Good breadsticks. All right.
All right, let's try this again.
My boy Capono still got the C9. Love the C9. C9 is probably brighter than all three of these.
Now
Whether
I
they
have
meant
to
it or not.
watch no overdraft fees. So let's see. And actually, you know what? This is actually a good one right here. So the Capital One, it is softer on the Samsung. On the bottom right-hand corner, where you see Capital One, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, the beard too. I mean, it's dark, but the beard is more separation on the A95L.
So you probably cannot see this, but I'll tell you right now. There is more detail. Capital One is easier to read. It's not as soft as on the Samsung. And the G3 also looks good. The Capital One looks pretty great. Okay, let's see if there's.
We're doing Capital One commercials now.
Let's get
Olive
this
Garden up
beard.
next. Capital One.
But otherwise, yeah, I mean, Capital One is because it's text, so it's easy for me to separate the detail there. Oh, I could somewhat fast forward it, but it's just not working as well as it could. All right. Okay, I can't do this. Every time I fast forward, I get another commercial.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, guys. But generally speaking, both the Sony and the LG actually have pretty good upscaling when it comes to non-sporting. Oh, here we go. How about the last duel?
Do you have Dr. Sleep or no, FOMO?
Dr. Sleep? Well, what station was
Oh,
it on?
yeah, and I thought maybe you had it on your Kaleidoscape. You don't have a Kaleidoscape there?
Is it on Prime only?
No, it's a. I have it as a Blu-ray.
Oh no, I
Let's
do.
see. Oh, Robert's
Yeah,
got the 75-inch XLED. And we had in the are we using the X310 mastering monitor, FOMO? Is that what we're using for the shootout?
X3. It's not the new one. It's the one that's only capable of 1,000 nits. So, just so you guys know, the new one is not out until November. So if you guys are referring to the 4,000 nit Sony, it's not even available for purchase until after November. So let's be realistic about that. Actually, so let me jump in.
So he said
Yeah.
Robert just said he's got the two monitors there now, though.
Right. It's last year's monitor,
Okay, he's got two of them.
and hopefully we answered your question. Ali has a super chat. Thank you, FOMO, for your content. You're welcome. I learned a lot from you. I hope you did. When do you think we will get the LG OLED blue phosphorescent and your thoughts about it? So blue phosphorescent is out in 2024 for all the TV makers to test and do whatever they want with it. But that would mean that in the testing phase. Now, here's the issue with blue phosphorescent OLED right now. It is more efficient, it is brighter. However, its lifetime, we're talking durability, may not be good enough. So it needs to at least match current blue fluorescent OLED. Just because it's brighter and more efficient does not mean it's going to last as long. But hey, I might be surprised. Let's just say phosphorescent blue is perfect in every way. It's not going to be out for 2024 TVs because they're just receiving it in 2024. It would be at earliest 2025. So that's basically the earliest. I expect it personally 2026. I think it's going to take a while for it to stabilize and say, okay, this product is ready for consumers, because LG has a G4, G5, G6. It's a 5-year warranty. The last thing they want is to warranty a TV that doesn't last 5 years, right? So keep that in
Yeah,
mind.
no doubt.
Yeah. Now, there was a question right before that I was going to answer. What did you say? It was, the
There's
DVM,
another super
right?
chat too.
Oh, I see it.
Yep.
Okay, so real quick about the reference monitor. I know for sure we're using the reference monitor from last year. But for those of you asking, well, why aren't we using the latest reference monitor that goes up to 4,000 nits? It's because none of the content that we are comparing to a benchmark was graded with this monitor, right? You want the
Yeah.
content playing on the monitor it was graded on. So until
Yep.
this new 4,000 nit monitor makes its way through Hollywood and the movies are begun to be graded on it, what's the point of us using it? It's not a reference, and it'll take at
Yeah.
least 3 years for all that content to make it to the new monitors. That's assuming the studios are using this monitor. They're assuming a lot. Now, assumption one, if all the studios buy this monitor in December, and they all have it, assumption two, it takes a year for a movie to be shot and then finally graded a year later. So that's two
Oh man.
years. And then by the
Wow.
time it makes it to disc, what, a year and a half, 2.5 years at earliest. So you're going to see it on streaming content, maybe, right? So that's why. All right. Hey, Giddy G Man, thank you for the super chat. For the purist, FOMO, the A95L, did it exceed expectations or not? For me, slightly beating the G3, that exceeds expectations. But if your expectation was for it to be 200% brighter, no. If your
Yeah.
expectation is slightly brighter than the G3, yes. So it met, how about this? It met expectations. But
Yeah.
expectations were so high, and that's so unfair for the A95L, right?
Absolutely. Well, and
It
again,
was just
coming
so
out so
high.
late in the year. I
And
think we had
let's
another
see.
super chat. We had another super chat up high,
Oh,
I
okay.
think.
And he still hung up on the contrast and brightness preferred setting. Gradation preferred is the best setting. Brightness preferred, you clip too much detail. Before, I liked brightness preferred, thinking that it would bring brightness up, but it does not. Brightness preferred expands the size of that bright part of the scene, but it doesn't get it brighter. Gradation preferred preserves that brightest part, but gives you the detail. So I think gradation preferred is done right this year. Brightness preferred doesn't bump the EOTF, it just expands the brightness out a bit. But again, that's on the contrast patterns. We'll have to see in real content what it really does. But even seeing in some content, I think gradation preferred does a better job. And it's been fixed, by the way. The firmware update has fixed what was not working as well before. So you said there was
Okay.
another super chat? Was it Giddy? Did I
Nope, it
miss
was
another
up
one?
earlier.
Oh,
I think it was a
earlier.
question about the 100-inch
Oh, yeah.
UAK.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see it. Here we go. Brian, it's for you.
Oh,
Brian, do you know if Value Electronics is going to be getting a 100 U8K? That's the one we talked about, right? And I think Robert spoke to you. What's happening? What did Robert say?
so we talked about it today. The UX is there right now, which I'll look at Monday. And the minute the U8K 100-inch is available, he will have one of those as well. So you will see it on the channel. So thank you for the super chat, Tar Hoya. But yes, he's going to have the 100-inch in store. And I love the U8K, so it'll be amazing to see it at that size.
And
Fomo, do you think the 100-inch U8K will have some improvements, or is that going to be the same model just at 100 inches?
well, at 100 inches, dimming zone count is different. It
Yeah.
appears to have a higher density of dimming zone per inch, which to me is important in blooming control. Well, first of all, is it using the same processor? So I've been impressed with Hisense's image processing over TCL, but TCL gives you that brute force brightness and contrast. So I don't know if the U8K will be tuned differently or not, because you guys might not be familiar, but TV sizes are not just different sizes of the same model. They're literally different models as well, despite
Yes.
sharing the same name. Sony X95K 85-inch, completely different TV than the X95K 65-inch.
Yeah.
Samsung, some sizes are ADS Pro, some sizes are VA. And so with the U8K 100-inch, is it going to be ADS Pro? Is it going to be VA? We don't
Yeah.
know. And it doesn't mean one's better than the other, but definitely they'll be different. And also, with more dimming zones per inch, does it make it better or worse? Or do they know what to do with the additional dimming zones, right? So, do you
Well,
have a
plus remember,
price?
FOMO, we had the Sony X92 a couple of years ago, which everybody thought was an X90J, and Sony had said that it was its own thing. So
Yes. But also, did you get a price for the U8K 100-inch, Brian? Because
no, I think it's still like 10 grand. It'll be expensive.
well,
It'll probably be 10,
I know the UX is actually no, I
5 or
do have it.
6.
I think it's eight
UX,
thousand dollars. I think the press release says it was $8,000, something like that.
the UX or
The
the
100-inch, the
okay,
100
that's
inch.
not bad. 100
That's not bad
inches,
at
damn.
all. Yeah.
I think the UX is 5 something at 85. I love Lisa. Lisa, as much as I love Lisa, you've been watching these. She does not want that 77-inch, I think. I think she's just, Lisa, if you end up being underwhelmed by a new TV and it makes you love your old TV better, that's even a better case scenario, right, FOMO?
Yeah.
If it makes you really appreciate, like I appreciate my C1 now more than ever, just because it's still good, more than me wanting to buy something else. So if you still love that A95, it's the best case scenario is to buy nothing.
And this is the thing. If you need a 77-inch, that's it. But if you only need a
Yep.
55 and 65, right? The
Yeah.
question becomes, let's say the A95K cannot get as bright. It has to be those scenes that benefit from it, number one. Number two, are you watching Netflix with those exact scenes? So, for example, I watch Netflix with my family and we watch a lot of Korean dramas, but it's not necessarily HDR. It's just drama. I'm not going to benefit from the A95L over the A95K at all, right? So I would just get the A95K, which I have right now watching Korean dramas on it. But if I was regularly watching things like maybe Sweet Tooth and Netflix, Witcher, where the brightness really is brighter, right? You need a TV that renders it a little bit brighter. And Dolby Vision is an option to play with, Dolby Vision Vivid, all those different things. Yeah, you'll benefit, but without that content specifically in mind, get the A95K, unless, and I think I spoke to you about this, what about durability? The A95L should last longer
Yeah.
because it's using the second gen panel, so that's something else to consider. And it's using the MediaTek Pentonic chip, the latest chip, so maybe that brings something to the table, like, what is it, a picture-in-picture or whatever, it's multi-picture side-by-side, whatnot. Maybe you'll benefit from that. So I was going to show this one really quick, because the headlights on the Audi, the Sony has the clearest headlights of the three TVs. So let me see if I can zoom up on that.
Well, Ghost of MS, hey Brian, I saw your review of the A80L. How would you think the 77-inch of that? I mean, the A95L is going to be brighter. I don't even have to see them side by side, but I'll test them side by side when I get back to the store. And the A95L will be there in early October at 77 inches. But I imagine the picture processing would be a tad better on the A95L and a good deal brighter. The A80L is very good, but at 77 isn't the brightest OLED. So expect the A95L to be brighter. But A80L is also still a great TV. I think it's actually the most overlooked TV of the year.
Yeah, I cannot zoom it in and preserve resolution on YouTube, but from this distance, I'm about 16, 17 feet away. The headlights on the Sony, the Audi, so Sony's in the middle, G3 on the right, S95C on the left. The headlights on the Sony is the easiest to see. The clarity is there. So it's upscaling YouTube TV advertising, and it's upscaling 720p. So, but everything else is so close. If I didn't have it side by side, It's not like the Sony's head and shoulders better, by the way, than either the G3 or the S95C. It's just I can see it a little bit better from here. So for the super chat that was asking whether upscaling YouTube TV is good, the answer is definitely yes. Okay. See how many more. Okay. So Brian, we're gonna
Yes.
have the shootout in 2 weeks. All right, starts in
Yep.
2 weeks.
hmm
And what most excites you about the shootout?
Well, for me, not to be cocky, but our coverage
Ah,
is what's going to excite me because we're looking to bring that golf chat, that sports talk to the shootout. I really can't wait to. I've always enjoyed the shootouts, but I think you guys have only seen one aspect of it. I can't wait to bring the entire experience to you guys and to spend that kind of. I love working next to FOMO instead of us just doing these streams. So that kind of camaraderie, us hanging out with you guys, is what I'm really looking forward to more than anything. I mean, we've all seen these TVs, we know them inside out. So it's really more about bringing the whole experience to you guys.
as I think for us to be allowed to engage with the audience and talk to the judges, talk to the calibrators, and get their opinions, this is going to be a unique angle of the shootout because by the end of the shootout, even before the scoring is added up, you get a sense, a collective sense of subjective opinions and a feel of how why the judges vote the way they did, where
Yep.
they're coming from. Because Brian and mine, our goal is to give you context, like where are these judges coming from? What is their professional
Yeah.
experience as a
Yeah.
color grader, as a creator? For example, I'm
Mhm.
really excited to interview Phil Holland, a very
Yep.
noted Hollywood director, cinematographer, director of photography, right? He has his own YouTube channel, watch his stuff. He works in Hollywood. He does stuff for production. We're talking large studios, Warner Brothers, Disney, whoever, right? He's a pro. But not only does he direct and shoot, right? He has various red cameras, the Raptor and the new Komodo X. He knows what he wants, right? He's the one that shot the models on Spears and Munsell. Much of the footage in Spears and Munsell was generated by Phil Holland. So if you catch the old one and the new one, you'll see Phil Holland as one of the creators. Stacy Spears is the one that put it together. But the one that actually did the shooting is not Stacy. He's not out there with a camera, right? It's Phil Holland and various photographers or cinematographers like him. So he knows what he's capturing, right? Right now he's shooting. Many of you ask, why don't creators shoot 4,000 nits, 10,000 nits? He's the guy to ask. He is the one creator that pushes technology. Why is he using Red Raptor? He wants 4,000 nits. So we're going to ask him, well, if you want it, what's stopping you? And he's going to share with us his ideal TV size and seating distance because he just recently finished some research where they gathered a lot of information about, given today's current TV technology, resolution, HDR, motion red, all that, they're updating what is the best distance to give you maximum immersion. Just remember, the original THX recommendation was based on pixel pitch, where if you sit too close, you saw the pixel. Well, that's not a problem. So if seeing pixel and seeing that softness is not an issue, then how far should you sit? And so then you had, well, if you sat too close, your head turns around, all that stuff. They address all of that. So talking to Phil Holland will be amazing. I cannot wait to bring him on, and he will
Yeah,
give
he
you
was
his
great.
perspective. Right? Go ahead, Brian.
He was great. I mean, because he's can speak to it of somebody who wants to show that and create it, versus an engineer or somebody. He's the one that wants to capture it, and he's got some really cool stories about things he's filmed, movies, everything.
So CJ
Yeah,
has.
Lisa, don't be worried about it looking too blurry. A 77 is still a great size. It's all about where you're sitting.
So I am 15
All
feet
right.
away. The softness from 15 feet away. So you have to remember, if I was 4 feet away, that's you can see it. From this distance, if anything, the 77-inch will look sharper, actually, because from this distance, this it I think the pixel density becomes irrelevant. Now, actually, I could be more. I think I might be 16 feet away, right? So I didn't come up close to pixel peep. There's definitely no pixel peeping as far as softness is concerned. It's more of a general feel from this distance. So if anything, the larger TV should look better to me because I could see more of that brightness and separation out of a farther distance, right? It's like saying, well, I mean, take it to an extreme. If you're at a drive-in theater and you have a tiny 65-inch TV, at what point do you not even see the 65-inch TV at all, but you see in all of its full greatness the drive-in theater screen? I mean, at some point, the size is less relevant, and because the pixel pitch is just you're too far away for it to make a difference. And that's why I'm kind of standing here rather than sitting really close. Because pixel peeping from 4 feet away is not realistic, but many of you do watch TV from this distance, which is about 15 feet away. And if you look at the size of this lady, right, she looks very similar. I mean, it's like here, I cannot say one looks sharper than the other. I mean, this is a movie from 1940s, clearly shot in a low resolution, right? Low
Godzilla.
resolution, low dynamic range, everything is low, and then YouTube TV is upscaling it from 480p to whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
And yet, they all look very similar because you're limited by the source. So, well, Brian, you have more experience with the larger sizes. Do you sense softness from all distances, or is softness unique to LED TVs? I mean, because OLED's infinite contrast, I think, solves a lot of that softness that people complain
It,
of on the
it
LED
definitely
TVs.
does. I would tell you that with an OLED, you definitely can be closer with a 4K OLED. I did notice on the QN95C, as I was testing that TV, being a little too close, the image got very soft. But that was 85 from 6 feet away, 5 feet away, probably 5 feet away. So I would say it's where you sit more than anything. But yeah, you're absolutely right. OLEDs do offer a cleaner image due to the contrast ratio. But it is really where you're sitting more than anything. I mean, but we always say, FOMO, if you're going to jump up in size, going from a 55 to an 85 is never recommended. It's too big a jump. You will see it will not feel as clean due to pixel density. But that's more of the largeness of jumps. So we always recommend 10 inches FOMO, 55, 65, 65, 75, 70. No, it's hard to go from a 42 to an 85. It's always going to feel soft, which would be the same way if you went from a projector.
Well, hopefully you're not sitting 4 feet away if you're going to an
Yeah,
85
exactly.
inch.
Well, unless our boy Scott's in the chat.
Oh, Scott, 5 feet away. What's the best TV from 5 feet away? Hey, Jenner has a great question, and I think it's
So,
something
Jenner.
that is still relevant. Hey, what's up, Whisper and FOMO? Thank you for the great content. Okay, quantum, I guess he means QLED, quantum LED, LCD TVs
Yep.
versus regular OLED. Regular, I assume WOLED. There's only two types, QD OLED or WOLED from LG. What offers the best performance compared to the level of investment? So let's take an extreme. Let's talk U7K, Brian, which you have. The U7K is $700 at most for a 65-inch size,
Yep.
and a 65-inch LG C3. Let's say C3 is like 1700. It's $1,000 more. Oh, 75
I,
inch is 75-inch U7K is still under 1,000, I believe. It's like maybe
yeah.
8 or 900. So
Yeah.
8 or 900, and the 77-inch C3 is over 2,000. So you're still $1,000 apart.
See,
Is
that's
what you're getting? So tell me, is it worth that $1,000 or $1,200 jump from a 75-inch U7K as an extreme example to the C3? And at what point? Or let's say the Sony X90L, 75-inch, that's 1,800. So it's about $800 cheaper, right?
so we've only ever said that the larger TV wins if it's cheaper, or let's say if that was the U7K versus a 65-inch C3, then it beats it all day just due to the size. But when you go with a larger OLED, which beats it everywhere and is a few inches larger, and the 77-inch size to me is substantial over 75, the C3 all day, and it would be worth the 1,000. As good as the U7K is, it can't compete with a larger OLED. So that's where the 77-inch size is a pain, but that's also from, as we talked off camera, where the 83-inch and 85-inch size is a problem.
Yeah. And so, Brian, you have a slight lip sync. So if you move your mouth before you make a sound, Getty might be able to read your lips better. So
Yeah,
I
it's okay, Getty. I'm
don't know
not
how,
filming
how to fix that.
Goodfellas here.
Hey, Shootout After
I can
Party
pretend.
should be
I can pretend.
televised live without any cuts. Michael,
No
we are in
way.
New York City. I don't know. I don't know if YouTube would let some of the crazy thing that happens. We'll see what
Oh,
happens.
mine got demonetized. We did that whole shoot. We were all handing it off to each other. Mine got knocked down. We were
Or was it?
like,
I think last year we walked into a bachelorette party,
yeah,
and
that was funny.
yeah, I mean
Yeah, that was
that's
funny.
you don't know what can happen there, right? So you never know. Okay, see any more super chats or questions? Add up questions. We'll be on for another 10 minutes, Brian. Is that good for you?
Sounds good. Yep,
All
perfect.
right. Oh, here's a good question. Are the tests at the shootout blind? No, because it I mean, when you start changing the source, or anytime the source has a hiccup, all the TVs will reset, and right away during the reset, you know exactly what TV is what, right? Oh, that's a Sony, that's a Samsung, LG, whatnot. So practically speaking, it's very difficult. But let's just take the practicality out. Would a blind make a difference? Having a reference monitor forces the judges to have something to compare it to.
Yes.
So if they have any bias, the judging directions are very clear depending what on what you're measuring or comparing. So let's say contrast, right? So in this pattern for contrast, this is the reference monitor. What TVs show all of the various gray bars completely, just like the reference monitor. It's almost objective. It's very difficult to be biased. Now, where you could get biased would be give me your favorite HDR impact. So that you could have some bias because there's more of that preference there, but this is also why we have such a large number of judges. I think we have like more than 5 different judges, and each judge has a different preference. I remember clearly maybe 2 years ago, we had a judge from Criterion. His TV is a C9.
Yeah.
He watches on a C9. He grades on a reference monitor, but he still watches
Yeah.
on a C9.
Yeah.
Other judges, they're still running with the Sony, the infamous Sony X90,
Yeah.
right? Z9D, is that it? That's one of the last great ones. And then you have people that my daily driver is a Q90R, right? Loves Samsung. He only watches Samsung. I love that the diversity of judges, they have
Yeah.
different TVs. Not all the judges have an LG or a Sony or whatever.
Yeah.
And here's the best part is when you walk into this, it's all been calibrated specifically
Yeah.
to be great as a grading instrument.
Yeah.
These TVs are calibrated as if you're going to use the TV to grade. When
Yep.
they're at home, who knows what their settings are because they could be in a bright room, they could be in a dark room, they could be watching
Yeah.
football all day, so they're watching it in vivid. And I think it's okay that it's not a blind test, but I do recognize bias, preference bias, recency
Yeah.
bias, right? There's so many psychological biases,
Of
but
course.
but I think it kind of offsets to a certain degree. And then we'll also talk to calibrators. So the judges have their score. And then you and I will have our favorites. And then we'll have the calibrators, right? Dwayne
Yeah.
Davis, Classy, John Riformato. They're going to tell me what they thought, who they thought should have won. And so you're going to get a collective wisdom beyond what one single score can tell you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, also, FOMO, I know we talked about at M Wave, at least next year, we're planning on it, is we are going to also do an out of the box kind of comparison. Just whatever they ship in, we'll go back from the calibration to that particular preset, and you'll see each signature. And I think that's important.
And here's a question that's great. And I think it goes to content that Brian and I have been talking about. What about legit 4K Ultra HD discs, right? So Blu-ray, 4K HDR upscaling. Doesn't Sony take the lead anymore? So first of all, upscaling legit 4K HD discs. It doesn't need upscaling. All of these TVs easily will show high quality DVD and Blu-ray and 4K HD. So Sony is more concerned now with low bit rate, or rather intermittent internet issues, right? Where it's a digital feed, but it's on YouTube TV, where the source is an app or the source is your streamer and your internet is weak. Most people are streaming now. So Christian, I don't know if you noticed, even though disc sales are still somewhat healthy, the future is streaming. The present is streaming. And there's only two, three brands of players that play Dolby Vision. That's Sony's
Yeah.
X700, X800, and then you have Panasonic UB820, UB9000. Then you have these off-brand, was it Megatron or Revon and its sister company,
Yeah. Yep.
Mega something something. Oh yeah,
Magnetar.
Magnetar,
Magnetar. Yep.
Magnetar. Both of those TVs over $1,000 or 800.
Over
I mean,
1,000.
very
Those players.
expensive.
Yep.
You guys aren't going to be buying that because the image quality is not better. It's like it's supposed to be a higher resolution audio. Really, it pays more formats, audio formats, but the actual HDMI video, it's all the same. I've compared the X700 to the 9000 to the 820, identical, no big deal.
Yep.
And Sony, as far as high quality, they feel their Bravia Core gives you more quality than a
Yeah.
disc. So
Download it.
Sony's
Yeah.
moved on for sure.
Yeah. Gaming text in the chat. What's up, Marcus? How are you, brother?
Lisa
FOMO, real quick.
wants,
Oh, go
yeah,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Oh, I was going to say
No,
before you jump in, because you were talking about the after party, Lisa
yeah.
wants to know what happens at the after party. Like, she may not have experienced what happens. So let me tell you what happened at
That
the
stream is
first
still
after
on. You
party.
can go find it, Lisa. Just go look at my channel. You'll see it. Go under lives. You'll see your boy. I'm like pushing bouncers out of the way.
The first after party, Brian was like, we were being dragged from bar to bar, and
Yeah.
then we called an Uber, and
That
Shane
was a great
threw
night.
threw him out of the Uber and just took off. He said, "Hey,
Yeah, so I ordered an Uber, and then KG did the same damn thing at CES.
CES."
He was like, "See ya." Real quick, FOMO about physical media. While we're talking about it, as much as FOMO and I are both fans, our favorite movie, both of us, one of our favorite movies, is Brotherhood of the Wolf. I've
Yes,
had the 1080p version of that film for about 2 years. Apple TV actually upgrades your 1080p movies when they become 4K or HDR. They do it automatically. So now my Brotherhood of the Wolf is in 4K Dolby Vision, and I think Kaleidoscope doesn't have it, does it? It's still 1080p.
it's still 1080p.
So meaning that how many times in physical media I've bought the same movie even that movie FOMO I've had 10 different times. Now to have streaming upgrade it, if it's something like Apple TV where you can buy it, it's just really hard to compete now with physical media.
It is definitely, and
And it's stuck on one device for most. Well, not unless you carry the disc around, obviously.
I was going to share our shootout playlist for you guys real quick. Okay, so I just posted, this is the playlist for that week. We already have 5 videos lined up, or 6 videos lined up for that week from the 27th through the 1st, October 1st. And the actual shootout 4K TV is on September 30th. And then the next day, October 1st, is the 8K 85-inch big boy shootout, and a soundbar comparison shootout. And also, we're going to compare 98-inch TVs. That's on Sunday. Saturday is all about the best 4K TVs. So the A95L, the G3, and the S95C. And we want to address, so the U8K will be there. Why isn't the QM8 going to be there? And so this is very interesting. We want it to be there, but TCL admitted that its processing may not be good enough, and they don't feel that they have a chance. So they don't want to be killed, basically, which is fair. The issue, though, is we changed our ballot this year so that we have HDR impact, where color accuracy and processing is less of a category, because
Yeah.
itself, HDR impact is its own category. So you're going to be in a bright room, and the TVs we put in their best mode for a bright room for HDR impact. And the judges will be told, hey, which TV best represents HDR as this scene is intended? And the reference TV is off because the reference monitor can only go up to 1000 nits. These TVs will let loose whatever we think best represents that content for HDR impact. The TV will be put in that mode, and each of us will be a fan of our own TV. So, the G3, the S95C, the A95L, we want to make sure each TV wins this because it's very much preference. And then we're going to talk to the judges why they chose that TV, and it's going to be in a bright room. And I think that's the strength of the QM8, but
Yeah.
it won't be here. However, the
Yeah.
Hisense
Well,
UAK
yeah.
will be. And if Hisense
It,
UAK
it,
does well, then maybe TCL will
and
come back next year.
yeah, I think it'll encourage them. But I think to your point, I think I wouldn't say they're afraid. I would say they probably are apprehensive because all the really nitty gritty of calibration might not suit that particular TV. And then it might get exposed a little bit. And that's not its strength anyway. So it's probably why be in this game if it's not our strength?
Yeah. And having this new ballot, they will see, oh, you know what? Maybe, so we have this sports mode, right? And we have this and we have that. We want to open more categories because many of you want to watch that TV and that category, or in this category, how does this TV do? We've never had a sports category in the way that we've explained it here today, which is a focus on clarity in a bright room, brightness, right? I think motion resolution, all these TVs do well now as a flagship. It comes down to, well, in this case, the S95C on YouTube TV on the Herd, it felt like everything was very soft in that specific content. And to me, that one, the G3, would have won for clarity. The Sony would have won for color accuracy in vivid mode if that was part of the weighting system. So, we're going to find a way to give each TV a chance to do what it was designed to do rather than forcing a square peg into a round hole. We're going to allow the square peg to be put in a square hole as well.
We missed some super chats, brother.
Oh, yeah. Well, someone asked about the Nakamichi, though. Oh, great content. Here we go. Thank you, Getty G Man. Great content. See you at the shootout. Ooh, are you really coming or just going to
Are you
watch?
going? Nice.
10 people are allowed to go. I think they've chosen the 10 already, I believe. But you can
Oh, I think
always
only.
email Robert. They're selling tickets and so forth. So it's only for 10 people, though.
Well, tell him you know a guy.
Yeah, yeah.
I know a guy.
Oh, wait. Game enthusiast. Stop the FOMO. Thanks. Got tickets. Just wanted to be sure.
All right,
Yeah,
cool.
he got tickets. He
Nice.
paid for it. They wouldn't let me in.
Yeah, yeah. He's like, there's only 10. But all right, cool.
Cool, cool. Let's
And
see.
then I think we had some super chats up top. Before there was a 19.
This is a great comment here from Christian. But you're not sitting up close when watching TV. Just 2 meters away, I can't tell the difference between 4K and 8K. There's so very little legit 8K footage. So this is why I love that Phil Holland is going to be here. He's going to shoot native, or he has shot native 8K footage on his Raptor. And he will bring the highest quality footage to be played back on a PC, split HDMI to all the TVs, including the 4K TVs. The 4K TVs will downsample the 8K, and the 8K will play it natively if it can via HDMI. And the 900C has HDMI. I believe it can do native 8K. The Z2 has HDMI, should be able to do native 8K, but the truth is we're not going to do that funky stuff where people put a USB. I hate it when people do demos on a USB.
Yeah.
No one watches content off a USB stick, right? You either stream it, and there's no such thing as 8K streaming. Remember, Brian, we tried that with the Amazon, it was the Lord of the Rings, and it
Yep.
was, you can't
You
you
couldn't
can't fast
rewind,
forward.
couldn't
Is it
fast
you
forward.
can't rewind? And it was like a 30-second promo trailer, and that was it, right? So there's no 8K streaming yet. But the question is, when you send it through HDMI from a 8K PC generating content that is the highest quality possible, how do these TVs look? And Phil Holland is going to tell us how far we're going to stand to see the resolution. We're not doing it from 4 feet away, okay? he's going to say, okay, we're going to stand here. This is realistic. Let's see if we see the difference. And we will be watching it and telling you what we see as well. So yeah, we're going to be, this will be the first time it's a true 8K shootout. Before it's more of an 8K demo. I think
Yeah.
that this allows us to play with the TVs a bit more. What are your thoughts on the 8K shootout, Brian?
I mean, I know neither one of us really wanted one this year simply because we've seen the Z9K and the Z2 do battle already. Um, so I was looking for more of this 85-inch super heavyweight division,
Uh-huh.
but
I'm
it's
looking forward to that as well. I'm looking forward
yeah,
to seeing the 4K playing downsampled 8K and see if it looks the same.
yeah. I think will be pleasantly surprised. I mean, I like the Z9K is excellent. The 900C is very good, but unless there was going to be a bunch, I wouldn't be able to. I really didn't see the point in it. I think there's much more for us to discuss at 85. But if they're going to mix them up together, then that's all I care about. And I think if we had a new Z3, and that's why I was okay with it. But then I found out the Z3 wasn't going to be there. I was like, ah. So
I love Pedro's comment. That's the policy for these summer festivals, right? I've never heard this shit called a festival. No one buys the ticket. It's always, I know a guy that knows a guy. That's so true.
yeah, dude, you know the guys that know a guy.
Apparently, you all
But
know us, so there you go. You can call Robert. I know those guys. Let me in. You guys are awesome. Scrolling through your
let's see.
questions.
Someone said we missed a super chat at
Oh,
1999
oh,
one, but I didn't see it.
yeah.
So
And I apologize if we did. Let's see. Okay, we got Getty G Man. See you out there. Okay, scroll up.
mine don't
And
go
thank
that
you.
far back.
Yeah.
It was before that, I think, but
Oh, okay, I see it.
I didn't
You
see it.
guys are awesome. Here we go. Thank you, J Steph. Sorry it took so long. You guys are awesome. I had a S95C 77-inch, then went and got a G3, and I'm loving it. See, guys, it's okay to go from an S95C to a G3. I don't
Yeah,
even question that decision at all. Now,
yeah.
J Steph,
And
share with
they
us,
have
what are you
different
watching,
sets.
right? What do you
Yeah,
love? Is it Dolby Vision? Let
exactly.
us know.
Great question.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And will you
Yeah,
be
yeah.
doing
Because
a Dragon review? Brian, will you be doing a Dragon
no,
review? No.
no, not good. No, nah. I should do the sound. We're gonna have the sound of our shootout. Is it gonna be there?
No, it will not be there. There's not
Okay.
enough Nakamichis. There's not enough Nakamichi dragons.
Wow.
So J Stuff, let me tell you my position on this. It's not so much that I don't think the dragon's great. It's 3,500. That's mostly the reason why. If I award the dragon as the most amazing system for 3,500, it should be. It's 3,500.
Yeah.
And if it is the same as what I think is an amazing system for $800, which is the Samsung flagship Q990C. Brian, can you believe that was 1,500? It was 800 during Labor Day, and it'll probably be 800 again for Black Friday. $800. As good as the Dragon is, it's so hard for me to recommend a $3,500
Yeah.
system over what I think. And I reviewed the 990B. The 990C is just, you know, the same thing,
Yeah.
slightly
Yep.
newer, but it really is the same thing. And I was so impressed. I felt that one easily matched, if not beat, the Sony A7000 with the surround, with the SW5, and it was like $800 more. And the 990B was amazing, and the 990C at 800 bucks, almost half the cost because of whatever promotions and deals Samsung just wants to give it away. The Dragon I know is good. There's no doubt about it. But it's 3,500. It better be, right? And at that point, I'm going to get into arguments with people. Well, for 3,500, I could build a discrete channel. It would be better, and you're probably not
Yeah.
wrong, right?
Yeah.
So
I haven't heard it yet, but yeah, you cost more than a receiver. It's kind of hard.
yeah. And there's a super chat right before that.
Yeah,
Big
I think.
Baller Dave. I love these
Yep,
names.
that's the one we missed. Yep.
Big
What's
Baller
up?
Dave, thank you for your generosity and thank you for your patience. It took forever to get to you. Love all the testing comparisons you guys do, but bottom line, up front, is the A95L 77-inch worth thousands more than the other TVs, specifically the S90C 77-inch, my editor's choice? I watch a lot of YouTube TV. I paid $2,800 for it. I think we're okay here. 2,800 versus 5,000
Yeah.
MSRP right now, right? So like 49 whatever. But let's say by Black Friday it's 4,800. It's $2,000 more.
Yeah. You can
As
so
much as
in
I see
context,
differences, it's not 2000 like, oh my gosh,
no.
I'll deal
And
with it.
Dave, for that much money for the 2000, get yourself keep the S90, grab a 85-inch QM8 and put it in the bathroom. Like you can buy a flagship Hisense or TCL for that 2000.
Um,
So I'm with you. I mean, 800 maybe because it's a new TV and it's a flagship or master series, but not for 2000. That's a whole nother TV. That's a whole nother huge TV, by the way.
and this is a double whammy for Samsung, double whammy in a good way. Not only is the S90C 77-inch matching the performance of the S95C, it's $1,000 cheaper. So you get the performance
Yeah.
of the S95C for 1,000 less. The A95L 77 thought that it was competing with the G3 and the S95C, which where the pricing separation is now less than 1,000. But when you bring in the S90C 77-inch, it's now at 2,000. If you are considering a Samsung, the S90C all day long, 77-inch, because that 2000 is just not there. It simply isn't. If you're coming from a Sony, you need to stay with Sony. I understand. A95L, get it next year, wait for the discounts. But if you don't have any loyalty to the Sony feel, you're coming from a Samsung, lucky
Yeah.
man, stick with Samsung. You're going to love the S90C.
And for you Sony fans, not to say you're Sony fanboys, but is that just the next logical step for you, or are you open to a new brand every year? Because for me, I don't have any really brand loyalty. If it's something that I like, I go for it.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing is our job. I feel like our job is to help you match up your budget, your preferences, and your watching content watching use case to the best TV that fits the criteria, right? Price, content, and maybe your preference for HDR, SDR, and whatever that brand ends up being. I mean, half the time I'm recommending the U8K and the Q7, by the way. So you guys know my budget's $800. The minute I hear it's $800, and then I hear I need a 65-inch Q7, U7K. I mean, right? It's like, where are you going to go at $700? And then if
Yeah.
the budget's 2000, okay, it starts opening up more. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter to Brian or me which brand you choose. We're not getting bonuses from the brands for sure. And I think
Nope.
Sony is not happy with me at all. After their this is your fault, Sony, their pre-update. After the update, I'm actually, now that I had a chance to go, okay, it's very specific. So Sony above 4,000 nit is still bad as far as tone mapping, right? That's not fixed. But who watches 4,000 nits? Above 2,000 nits, again, tone mapping, not very good, but who watches 2,000 nits? So on the spears and months and all that stuff, it's not going to look good. But what we saw today, Netflix or Prime Video, all the streaming platforms are under 2,000 nits, gradation preferred, they fixed it. Now it is a match for the G3 in every way and brighter when the content calls for it. And that is a win for Sony. Jeffrey says, depends on what price and what size the G3 is at. I don't think it's worth MSRP, but it's really amazing TV. My 77-inch has perfect uniformity, and this is key. This is the issue I have with the G3, is if you have perfect uniformity, now it's a great TV. The problem is a
Yeah.
lot of people don't, and they're swapping TVs all the time because WOLED has that reputation, right?
Yep.
Brian, you've had experience with the various
Yeah.
WOLEDs. Was uniformity an issue for you?
Yeah, it was, and it's really if gaming tech was still in the chat, it's a lot of the content that raise blacks that we see in a lot of HDR movies, and this 12%, 15% gray that shows that banding. It really wasn't a big deal when OLEDs crush black, but now that they try to retain shadow detail, it is visible. So, and my TV's not blooming; it's just the exposure on the camera.
Yeah. And I just caught another super chat here from W, and I apologize again if I'm missing your super chat, but I had to, before we get to your super chat, there was a comment about I can't take Hisense seriously. It sounds like a value brand, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but keep this in mind.
Yeah.
LG, before it was known
Yes.
as Life's Good, which is what it is today, it used to be known in the late 80s as Lucky Gold Star. They would give away free microwaves at the local car dealership when you bought a car. And guess what the microwave brand was? It was a Lucky Gold Star. So LG is no stranger to being the cheap value brand, as it started just like Hisense did back in the late 80s, early 90s. Lucky Gold Star. Now, they've buried that name. They wish no one would ever raise it up again because Lucky Gold Star sounds like a cheap brand.
Yeah, it
But
does. I didn't even know
yeah, you
that.
didn't know that, right? But do you remember
No, I
Lucky
did
Gold
not.
Star?
No, I remember
Would you
them being
take a
LG,
brand?
but
Would you take it
oh my
seriously? The
god.
Lucky Gold Star W OLED. I mean, would you take it
Yeah,
seriously? Right?
Lucky Gold Star.
So I had to
That
comment.
sounds like a wash machine.
And they've come a long way, by the way. So, today LG, life's good. All right, they rebranded. And Hisense, in a few years, they'll get there. Okay, W, Super Chat, thank you. The 77-inch S90C from Costco with a 5-year all-state warranty and a 90-day return, price matching, is 2600 on the way. The only way. Prove me wrong. I agree. Brian?
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I like how he made it like a punchline. On the way, the only way.
The only
Price
way.
match. No, I mean you really can't go wrong. I mean, 5-year all-state warranty, 90-day return window. I mean, we're big fans of the S90, so yeah, go for it.
Agreed. All right, and here we go. Just checking if I missed any other super chat before we jump to. Okay, Carlos Labe. The panels will be the same here in Latin America as in the US. I want to buy a 65-inch TV, but I am undecided between the G3 or the S90C. Greetings from Chile. Oh, so we always ask you the same question, Carlos. What is your use case? Gaming, sports watching. So as you saw, a couple live stream this week and today, I find the G3 to be great for watching sports. So if you watch a lot of soccer or football, as they call it in Latin America, then I take the G3 because I find that just sports looks better to me on that, especially if it's a lower bit rate like YouTube TV or Fubo or any one of the various streaming channels, right? That isn't exactly perfect all the time. Now, gaming though, if you do a lot of gaming, the S90C, as far as I know, is the preferred choice for most gamers, not all. I would prefer the S90C for gaming because I find it very easy to get into the right mode without tweaking too much. Get it bright. It looks great on Nintendo Switch and PS5. It's very consistent. I love the bright, punchy colors. And I also appreciate the S90C's brightness, but the G3 is also bright. So it has Dolby Vision. Samsung does not, if that's important to you. However, the audio on the G3, you're going to have to get a soundbar. You will not be happy with that audio. That's been my conclusion. So yeah, but let us know, Carlos, what is your use case? What's your content? And maybe we could help you narrow it down. And Elisa wants to know, Brian, is that the TCL again behind you? Or is that
That's the Hisense.
it's the Hisense U7K, right? Okay, this is the question everyone wants to know because it's so expensive. Mankite asks, or Mankite, how close has the X95L got to QD OLED? Brian, you saw the X95L up close, 85 inches. You compared it to all the various TVs there. Now,
Mhm.
there is no 83-inch QD OLED, so you actually have to compare it to a smaller 77-inch QD OLED. So, Brian, how close is the X95L to a 77-inch S95C?
So where the X95L does pull away is again we go back into that size difference. It's actually probably the best LED I've ever seen. Where the Z9K is a more wild beast, the X95L is much more refined, where blooming is almost zero. So it's probably the best all around LED, but then you add those 2 inches, it's bright enough, it's vibrant, and it also has excellent blacks. So I would favor the X95L in that regard because then, as we've mentioned, the extra size definitely helps. That's where the
Yeah,
size helps. But if it was a 75-inch X95L FOMO going against, say, a 77, and then it loses just
yeah.
on the size alone.
Go defer to the size because the 83-inch is just not bright enough, in my opinion. Pedro says, Lucky Gold Star sounds like a scam. I'm glad they changed it. I know, right? And that's the thing. Once you make enough money, you realize your place in the world. You know what, Lucky Gold Star? Did we fire the guy who came up with that name? So, yeah. Definitely. And let's see, here we go. You guys are so awesome. Josh Lee, thank you for the super chat. What Blu-ray player would you recommend for the Z9K? I would recommend a Blu-ray player that auto detects Dolby Vision, and the only one that auto detects Dolby Vision that I know of, there are two of them, is the Panasonic UB820 or the UB9000. UB9000 is built like a tank. It's heavy, it's got a higher audio outputs, right? The better, I guess, converters, preamps, and all that stuff for audio files. But honestly, the 820 is exactly the same, just not built to the same quality. So the 9000 is about a little over 1,000, 1,200 or 999 or something like that. The UB820 is between 300 and 450, depending. So if cost is no object, get the Panasonic. Now I know the Magnetar is out there that was just released last year, and that's built to an even higher standard. It's like $1,400 or more. And then you have the Revon, which I also have, but I'm not impressed by the Revon's UI. I prefer the UB820 or the 9000, and this is why for me, the Panasonic, you could slow-mo. You guys see what I do, right? I need that slow motion. I can freeze frame, I can slow mo to my heart's content. That cannot be done on any other player if that's important to you. Also, the Panasonic uniquely detects HDR10 plus as well as Dolby Vision. That's something to consider if that's what you need, is both of that. But for the Z9K, since they don't do HDR10 plus, I'd say to match the fanciness of the Z9K, get the UB9000, right? Kind of matches. But if you want to save some money, get the UB820. Performs the same.
Yeah, and Michael Cohen also said the 9000 just has different audio capabilities, but
Uh-huh.
will you utilize those? That's the key. If you're
Yes,
using a
that's it.
receiver, will you really be utilizing that?
Exactly. Tim, question: $1,600, my budget. 55-inch S90C or $2,800 A95L. Wow, this is the jump. Okay. I only game on the PS5. You know what? The fact you even mentioned the
Yeah.
$2,800 A95L, I say go with the $2,800 A95L. This is why. PS5 is a Sony. I know the A95L is a second gen panel. I do not know that your 55-inch S90C is a second gen panel. You are saving
Oh,
money,
good point.
right?
Good
You're
point.
saving money, and then the audio on the 55-inch means you are unlikely to get a soundbar.
Yeah.
It's that good. Now I have the 65. I'm sure the 55 is almost as good, but if it's within your budget, I'm not going to ask you to stretch. If it's within your budget, go for it. I think you're going to enjoy it. And I know Sony likes to market that their PS5 and their TVs, they have a special color saturation mode. It looks better on Sony TVs, and the A95L is their most advanced gaming TV, offering, well, not like PS5 cares, but it offers 4K 120 Dolby Vision if that's ever important to you. But ultimately, I think as a package, you're getting $2,800 worth is a bit expensive, but if you could afford it, I'd go with it. Brian, what would you choose?
I'm torn. But I think your logic is great, but I also think that now that the A95L does play well with the PS5, I think you look for that Sony combo, where I think a lot of the strength of the S95 would be PC gaming, right, FOMO? But if you're going to stay console via console, they have a great marriage. I think you're probably right. And I like the other. Again, you add that audio. They're 55, which I think you're having as a combined unit. I think that that's a great thing.
Yes, so just to be clear, I am not a calibrator. I pay for the best calibrators, and I love TVs that are calibrated, but and part of it is this is why I'll tell you. If I if I ever become a calibrator, which I never will, it would cause me to spend more time tweaking these TVs than making content. And I'm sure Classy will tell you how much time he spends calibrating these TVs. It's better for me to call Classy and say, hey, my TV's calibrated, you're calibrating,
Yeah.
let's compare notes. What do you think? And he says, well, I see this. Okay. In 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I'm done. But if I'm the one calibrating my own TVs,
Yep.
then I am constantly double checking. I mean, and at the end of
Yeah.
the day, it ends up looking the same. Okay, so I spent hours double checking only to confirm it looks the same. be faster to call people like Classy, John Reformato, Dwayne David.
Yeah.
Guys, what are you guys seeing? And then they'll tell me this. And then I can blame them if I get it. You know what Dwayne Davis told me, right? But am I
Yeah.
seeing it on my TV? It got
What?
calibrated by Sammy Prescott. So
Yeah.
I want to separate myself from
Of
calibrators,
course.
even though I appreciate
Yeah.
what they do. Brian,
I think you said, but
what is your feel?
you saying it too about separating yourself. I think is key. You know, Dwayne is a calibrator. DP, his name is Dwayne as well. He's not Dwayne Davis, but his name is Dwayne. For me, separating myself because I think when you're calibrating, it's hard to see the forest from the trees. We're able to then almost do a blind look at them and say, okay, this is where I do see the differences. And we just honestly just don't have the time to do that kind of deep dive. We do no content, and we're better at giving you the cliff notes of that. I think
Hmm.
myself
Yep,
anyway.
I absolutely agree. And there is definitely a channel for everyone because I have a personality where if I calibrated something, I will spend hours, and I know myself. That's why I refuse. I don't know how many times class, you know what, this equipment is this much, and China tried to sell me his calibration equipment. Like, the minute I dive into that rabbit hole, you will
You're
never
like,
see me
no
again.
thanks.
Like, where'd
No.
FOMO go? Oh, he's out calibrating again,
Yeah,
and
yeah, no.
yeah, it's too much.
No, I think the OCD would definitely kick in, and we've seen that too. What we were doing out M Wave with Jason, and he saw that they were wandering out of alignment. He's like, oh, and it was like another hour later.
Yeah, it's oh, and Lisa paid full price for the 65. Oh, wait, no, 2800. You still get a deal. 2800 is a
Yeah,
great
that
deal for
wasn't
a
full
65
price.
inch.
Yeah, a
Yeah, I thought
great
it was
deal,
the
Lisa.
65 inch. Excellent deal.
That's a great TV too, Lisa. Forever. That's the best thing about I would say with Sony TVs, FOMO, A90J, A95K, Master Series. You pretty A9G. You pretty much are all set with your TV for as long as you want to.
Yep. Okay, and I think we could wind down with this question. What would you call yourself, FOMO? I would call myself a TV in the context of the stream, right? I would
Oh,
call
okay.
myself a TV enthusiast where my job is to recognize when a TV company does something special, like they worked hard on something, right? I want to find out what that is. And then I want to show you guys, okay, LG, they worked on brightness, but this is the scene that you will see it. So to match what the TV designers did with the content that they designed it for and show that off and then show you that, see, the Sony did not work on that. They worked on something else, but just let me show you what the G3 did for you. And then this is what Sony did for you. And this is what Samsung did for you. Because my other life, I worked very closely with engineers, and I myself am a product designer, and it's always to match engineering capability with market expectations, right? And engineers normally don't know what the market expects. They only tell you what they can or cannot do. And it's the product manager, officer, executive's job is to find out what can we do given the limits of this product to match the expectation of the consumers. Now, I apply the same concept to TV makers. This is why I love TCL and Hisense. They actually listen. When I tell Hisense, you got to do this, right? Control blooming, specular highlights. Okay, that's the easy fixes that I can help them suddenly come to market with something that's amazing because
Yeah.
the other TV makers are barely able to do that well. And TCL and Hisense suddenly are doing it very well. But where did they cut costs is maybe image processing, maybe color accuracy. That could come later because if they did all of that in the same day, you'd be paying the same price. And what for, right? And so this is why, as a TV enthusiast, maybe an advocate, I'd be a TV advocate in the sense that my job is to recognize what each TV does really well and then see if that matches what you're expecting. So,
Yeah.
but Brian, what would you call yourself?
I mean, for me, it's very similar. I mean, I am an enthusiast, a home theater enthusiast, but at the same time, delivering the everyday guy or girl. Oh, we love you too, Lisa. Giving you the everyday man consumer point of view, not trying to be overly analytical and just real use case are the way we prefer them. That's why you see me break out of filmmaker mode and these other accuracy. I'm really more interested in how you guys enjoy your TVs. And as we get into live streams with 500 people in them with comments from 30 people, I'm trying to go for those of you that are behind the scenes that are afraid to say hello and say it's okay to watch it standard or vivid and the gamers. So that's really what I think I bring to the YouTube space is, more, and there's more guys like me out there now, but when I first started, there weren't many of us. So just more of the everyday guy that's really into this.
Michael's asking, will the Sony guru, Rob Brennan, right? Is that his name?
Yep,
Brian,
Rob will be
attend the
there.
shootout? Do you know if Rob is attending the shootout?
He's been there every year. I have not talked to him in the last couple of weeks, but pretty sure he'll be there with. We always call him Pedro, but it's Pablo. Pablo. He'll be there with the head engineer Pablo, and then we should see the guys from LG. I think David Park will be there. If it's the same guys, man, I haven't talked to those guys in a while. They're both very busy, but I'm sure we'll get some confirmation before they show. That's what I want you guys to talk to as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I know I promised to wrap up 30 minutes ago, Brian. I'm so sorry. I realized it's
No,
8
it's all
o'clock
right.
over there. We're going to wrap up
I'll do
10 minutes.
3 hours, no problem.
30 minutes later. Oh my God. Okay, Noel has a great question, and I'm going to answer this in a way you will love. FOMO, will you be posting a summary video of all the best settings to get the most out of the A95L based on what you've seen so far? Getting it next week, so we'd be really appreciative of any setting tips. Noel, Brian and I, and Classy, and Dwayne, and John Ruffermato, you're going to have the largest collection of TV enthusiasts and professionals and calibrators. We're talking Jason Dustle, right? We're all going to be there, and we will all be beating up the A95L to its best performance at all setting types, whether it's calibrated, uncalibrated. And by the end, and this is why I wanted to do the live streams leading up to calibration, our job is to let you know A95L, best settings, G3, best settings, S95C, best settings, which is also applicable to the S90C, and Sharp, if you happen to get TV, the best settings, right? Whatever TV is at the shootout, the 4K shootout, by Friday, we will summarize before the shootout what the best settings are. Now, obviously, they'll be calibrated, so you won't get the actual calibration, but at least if you don't plan to calibrate it, we will share with you our thoughts, how you should leave those TVs and what picture modes. I mean, I'm,
Absolutely.
I'm looking forward to that for sure. What are your thoughts on
Yeah,
that, Brian?
we'll make time for that.
Yeah,
I think we had one more super chat, Travis Vania. Then I
I
gotta run.
know. I hung out so long, we got another super chat.
What's up, Travis?
Travis, been a while. Jumping in late. Yeah, we were running late, so now here we are. Is the S90C bright enough at 55 inches for a living room with windows, but no direct sunlight? Trying to see if I can get OLED versus LED. I think it would be. If there's no direct sunlight, I think it's fine. And Brian, you've seen these TVs, the G3, S95C, in direct sunlight as well as not direct. Help Travis out. Is the S90C bright enough?
So, Travis, I mean, the S95C, I will tell you, its Achilles heel is direct sunlight. And what I mean by that is the sun has to be directly on it. So, having it in a bright room is not a problem, but having sun shining on it, it will turn gray, very gray. So, that is the one Achilles heel where it really struggles. But if you have it in a bright room, you'll be fine. It'll behave like any other OLED. A95K and A95L do not have that issue, but the S95 and S90 do. It will turn gray. It's unwatchable. But I'm talking about the sun has to beat right on it, which I never recommend. But for the most part, it should be fine. But in direct sunlight, no problem. Living room with windows, no problem. But only on if it's tanning, it's no good.
And remember, if you're in a bright room, the S90C or the S95C, tone mapping needs to be on active mode so that you kind of can see everything. So you may also want to play with the shadow detail, black levels, because it may look crushed even though it's accurate in a brighter room. The black levels appear a little crushed sometimes because the room is so bright. Your eyes are adjusting to the bright room. Go ahead and add another 2 to 3 clicks on the black levels, and you'll see the shadow details appear natural in a brighter room. But I think the S90C is
Absolutely.
fine as well. All right, I think we can wrap it up, my friend. Like, Jill has a
Awesome.
super chat as well. Oh, wait, let me find
Jill?
Jill.
We have a
Jill.
Jill? Oh my God.
Jill.
Usually it's just us, me, Lisa, and
Oh, here it
Jen in here.
is. Wow. Oh, well, here we go. Oh,
Hi, Jill.
you guys are awesome catching what we don't catch. Okay, the last super chat, guys. Brian and FOMO, do you think there will be an 83-inch QD-OLED and an 83-inch MLA out in 2024? Thanks. Okay, speculation time. I think there's a very good chance there will be an 83-inch MLA, mostly because LG is fighting for its life, right? We're talking LG Display as well as
Yeah.
LG Electronics. And here's the context. In 2021 and 2022, LG Electronics sold 4 million OLED TVs. This year, they only sold 3 million. Guess what? Samsung sold 1 million this year, or selling 1 million, right?
Yeah.
Where did this 1 million come from? It came from LG.
Yeah.
LG needs to do whatever it takes to get back to 4 million. That's huge.
Yeah.
It lost 1 million
Yeah.
in sales to Samsung, and Sony is mostly unchanged. So this is all Samsung stealing lunch from LG. So if it means getting an MLA 83-inch to move more units, they might do that. Now, on the Samsung side, they don't need it. They don't need to go 83-inch QD OLED. They're selling a million already. So, Brian, what are
And the
your
challenge, and FOMO and I talked about this at CES, and I've spoken to LG about this, and we've spoken to Samsung about this. Unfortunately, LG is reactive instead of being proactive. MLA could have been out 2-3 years ago, and they waited for QD OLED in a way. The problem, guys, is that the 83-inch size is such a small part that even if they did put it in the MLAs, people aren't going to buy them in large numbers. So even the 83-inch, for an example, the 80-inch G3 was hard to get this year, even without MLA. So I think, FOMO, we talked about this. If they included MLA, it still wouldn't move the needle. If they say it was a 55 MLA, then I would imagine that. I think they'd be better off, Jill, as much as I want the 83. If they did the MLA on the C3, I think it would be a game or the C4. That would move the needle. As much as I want the 83, I just can't see it being worth it for them, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And it's too late. I think it's already too late to do it. I'm sure the TV's already in production for next year. So
Yeah,
I'm
I mean,
guessing
at this
no.
point, but we're going to find out soon enough. See, we'll be at CES. We're going to have coverage. And
We
Brian,
will.
I'm already getting us a booth on January 7th, right before CES
Nice.
starts. We're going to start broadcasting. We're going to do a live stream to intro
Yeah.
CES so that we can start the 2024 TV season. Can we believe we're talking
Yeah,
about
we're
that
going to
already?
be there. And we already have our room, same hotel. We're ready to rock. So
Yes,
it's
we're
all
going to rock
good.
it. All
Guys,
right,
thank you so
guys.
much for joining us tonight.
Thank you so much. And don't forget, Brian has a channel. It's called Brian's Tech
Brian's
Therapy.
Tech Therapy. Yep, that's the name.
And speaking of tech therapy, do you have a tech therapy coming up? A lot of people, I feel I
I
sense
do.
some stress from them.
I do. I do have a tech therapy video that FOMO and I did on the A95L. It's about 45 minutes long, so I have to edit it. He's going to send me a thumbnail because he's got the king of thumbnails, and that should be up in the next few days.
Yep.
And then you'll have the
And
UX. So
absolutely. And Michael, don't all OLEDs have perfect blacks? This is in response to my comment to Lisa. This is in certain shadow detail areas. It felt like for whatever reason, the second TV, just the contrast is just a little bit better, but maybe it's just me. So that's all. I had to return one of the TVs, right? Okay, guys, thank you for coming by. Thank you for everything that you do, especially showing up and clicking like. And T Wood wants you to know, Brian, trying to find an A95K right now before it sells out because Lisa most likely will be buying another one. Until next
yeah,
time.
yeah, and they sell out, by the way,
And
the A95, but they're still
well,
making the A90J though.
yeah,
So.
the A95K will sell out before the A90J. That's my prediction. Until next time.
Awesome. All right,
Stop
guys,
the FOMO.
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.